How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, are still
Fenarian.
And Volacel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. But first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server. I don't think we've got any recent show posts that they can click the logo on to get there.
Yeah, maybe. I think I need to update all that again.
Yeah, we need to chuck that in the bar above the fold below the YouTube videos.
We should really just have click our show button on the website, just redirect to our Discord.
That's probably not a bad idea, actually.
Like, all the information on that page is wrong. It can just be deleted. Maybe keep the email address on there and the Twitter and Facebook. Not the Facebook. We don't use the Facebook. Just keep the Twitter and the email address, and then just have underneath it link to the Discord, and we'll make a proper post we can edit easier in the announcements thread, because that would be the probably better thing.
We'll figure something out, maybe. Anywho, let's dive straight in. On the stream today, I will be playing a bit more Dawn of Man. I'm picking up where I left off last week, with people being killed by prehistoric cows. Yay.
I see.
So apparently this game actually managed to hit #1 on the Steam charts over the last few weeks, despite it really getting absolutely no press.
No, there's been a huge amount of chatter about it online.
Well, since it launched, there has been, yeah. But leading up to it,
when it comes to press, like, nobody reads the press anymore.
This is an excellent point.
Like, the only thing that matters is how well does it do in social media immediately after release. That's what determines the success of a game nowadays.
Sad but true.
Said one of the YouTubers get a hold of it and play it on a stream and like it.
Yeah.
Even if they hated it, they might still get press.
Oh yeah, there's people out there who will buy and play a game and hate it. And just because of who they are and how many people watch, there will be people who still play it.
Yeah.
PewDiePie. So yeah, I'm just going to pick this up and keep picking along at it. My civilization hasn't died yet. But,
not for lack of trying, mind you.
Well, only the occasional prehistoric cow. And at current, a complete lack of flint. Go away, pop-ups. Seriously. So we shall see. I guess we'll move straight on to our weeks then. I didn't have one, really. This is becoming an all too common occurrence. But I did get to play a little bit of video game. I played a little bit of Monster Hunter and tried a tempered Kushala Daora. Giant metal wind dragon said no.
Yeah, he often does that. I think that he's one of the trolliest. He's probably the trolliest of the older dragons that are in the game, simply because he just spends so much of the fight being inaccessible.
Yeah, every time
it's not.
I'm running around with a gun lance at the moment, so my character is slower than average, and it's like every time I get close to him, he just drops a tornado and flies away.
Yeah, that's the big problem with him. I think that they should really work over that design a little bit more, because he's not really a fun elder dragon to fight. He's probably the least fun of them to fight, simply because you aren't fighting him most of the time. You're waiting for him to become fightable. Especially if you're like doing Arch-Tempered, for instance. You can flash him twice the entire fight.
And that's it.
So that means that basically, from then on, the sole strategy available to you is to wait. Not really ideal.
In terms of difficulty, too, I'd say he's probably one of the most inconsistent. Like, you could fight him one day and just absolutely walk all over him. He'll be no trouble whatsoever. And then the next, he just says no. And he will just bombard you.
His skill set is very sparse. Like, his only real moves are completely sodomize you with wind bullets and tornadoes that prevent you ever getting near enough to hurt him, and just like regular low tier lizard swipes. Like, those are the only things that he does. So if he decides to do more of just sort of swinging at you, you can jump up and down on his face. But if he decides that, he's going to breathe today, then you're toast.
Yeah, especially if he decides he's just going to spam tornadoes all over the place, so you end up boxed into a corner.
And you can get stuck and have to wait one of them out.
Yep.
For like 5 minutes, or however long they last.
I think it's about 3, but yeah. The point stands. He's just a massive troll.
Him and Joe are the two monsters I don't like fighting because I cannot make visible progress on them where I'm actually connecting with my attacks because of Joe is just too tall for my weapons, A, and B, he runs all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that the only weapon the only non-ranged weapon that really has a good time against Joe are the lancers, I think. Other than that, like even if you do a high swing with the great sword, you still can only barely clip him.
Yeah,
he's just a nuisance to fight. You end up spending most of your time. That's the thing with Devil Joe is I found the safest place to fight Devil Joe is underneath him. So long as you stay underneath him, there's an awful lot of things that he won't do to you.
And that said, though, that all goes directly out the window with Tempered Joe.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. I'm still traumatized from last time.
Yeah, using the gun lance. Regular Joe he's no trouble. He can be a problem if I let my guard down and start goofing around, but otherwise he's no big deal. But Tempered Joe, no.
No, I feel like that Joe's. I think does Joe share a skeleton with Anjanath?
I suppose he could.
Because I find that amongst monsters, those two are the ones that, to me, they seem like sometimes they'll get on a roll and they'll just hit you over and over, and it feels like there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, there's a few monsters like that, really. But those two in particular can really ruin your day if they get going.
No, Monster Hunter in general, in a fight, it's about momentum. Mm-hmm. If you get it, it's a lot easier. It's very easy to keep it in that game. And getting it back after you lose it is very difficult. That is true for all games, but in Monster Hunter, it feels especially so.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the animation speed or the mechanics of the game particularly. It just feels emphasized in that game.
It's because a lot of the time a flinch opens you up with the room you need to create another flinch. Like if you look at I tweeted a video of me wailing on Dodogama a while back, and I think you can see that video. It's probably still floating at the top of the timeline somewhere. It's pretty close to the top of the timeline. If you watch that, it's just me basically hitting him in the face until he flinches, and then hitting him in the face until he flinches again, and the poor little punk can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I've had fights like that. You just keep whacking him on the head, and it's stun, stagger, flinch, stun. But yeah. It's all about your timing, and once you get your momentum going, you're fine. But if you lose it, getting your timing back can be rather tricky, especially with some monsters. Or in the case of Kushala, it's just going to sit on the other side of the arena and throw tornadoes at you.
Yeah, that's the thing with like Kusha and Joe specifically is you don't so much fight them as chase them.
Joe is made out of purified screw you.
Yeah, so you spend the whole fight running after these guys instead of, fighting them. Like Teostra hits hard and Lunostra has a lot of mechanics that are hard to deal with, and people get frustrated at that. But at least you actually fight them.
Yeah.
You and the monster are punching each other. With Joe and Kusha, you're not punching them, you're chasing them. And to an extent, Xeno'jiiva Phase 2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Though much less so.
Much less.
I find Diablos is the worst for having chase.
Black Diablos and her duck under the ground and pop up at somewhere completely random moves.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the differences between the way we move and control our characters, but Diablos specifically, I've never had a problem with. I've always liked fighting Diablos.
I hate fighting Diablos. I spend the entire fight trying to get close enough to actually hit.
I'll admit, changing up and using the gun lance on Diablos makes him an absolute breeze now. It's just hide behind the shield and wait for him to come to me.
Every fight that I have with Diablos, as soon as I can get close and start wailing on him, he becomes super easy. Up until that point, it's just me chasing around the arena to the tune of yakety sax, because neither of us are actually hitting the other.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be because the way I have to handle Diablos with tiny weapons to get the tail, which is often a part I needed for a lot of stuff, was to do a running jumping slash every single time until that tail fell off. So I was always moving in a wonky way. So that might be why they never gave me trouble with staying close.
That could be it. So yeah,
because they'll behave
Monster
different if you're
Monster
closer
Hunter
the
World
way.
continues to be good. This is not news to anyone.
Yes.
It's very frustrating, but it's still good.
Very frustrating you never being online to play with me.
I need time for that. I don't. Time is an illusion.
You keep going to work, though.
I know, right? Want to stop? Do not want. Oh dear, my people are getting attacked by a bear. Don't stand there and fight it, you twit. Run away. No, she's dead now. Okay.
That was going to happen.
And now here comes the cavalry. Okay, the other game I played is Divinity Original Sin 2.
Oh boy.
It's a good game. I'm going to start off by saying that. But
a lot of tiny problems that add up real quick.
It's a good game with lots of small annoyances. And Ari actually reminded me of the biggest one right before the show, and that is the walking speed of all your characters.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're ever doing anything in that game.
Mm-hmm.
When Ari talked about that, I didn't really credit it. But now that Fern's complaining about it as well, it might actually be a problem. Because I know that for a fact that Ari's complaints about this are tainted because he plays so many things with Turbo.
Yeah, well, there's that. But even without that sort of perspective, I think the characters could benefit by walking maybe 20% faster, and it would just feel a lot better. So yeah, it is your typical top-down RPG, and you want to send you send your party from one side of the map to the other, and it just takes them forever to get over there.
Yeah, there are multiple minutes, plural minutes. getting across just a town. Not even like a world map or an open field or something. It takes forever to get through just the starting camp. It's not even a full town.
No, it's kind of it's actually a hellhole, but whatever.
All right, so I need to get some perspective on it because I don't play it. I don't have time to play a game that length.
All right.
So how is it faster or slower than your average run speed in Neverwinter Night?
Slower.
Yeah.
Because Neverwinter Nights is pretty damn slow.
It is. Do you recall the original Baldur's Gate?
No, I haven't seen it in forever. Like it's way too. That's way too old for me.
5 CDs. I've still got those somewhere, the originals. Yeah, but the original Baldur's Gate 2 to a same degree, PlayStation Torment, I believe, ran at roughly the same speed as well. All games like that, it's just felt slow. And yeah, the original Sin 2 runs at that same kind of, gate. So, yeah. That's my biggest complaint is that, and honestly, maybe I'm a bit spoiled by MMOs and things, but a little bit clearer direction on the quests would be nice as well. Like, there's an early quest where it says you need to go and find this guy's oranges. And
that one.
There's no clues. The guy's an asshole and won't give you any clues. The guy in the cage who he's accusing doesn't know anything. So basically, you just got to wander around town. Now, you will find the crate if you follow one of your party members' quests. But
if you don't pick that party member, that side quest just sits in your inventory and you wander around for 2 hours trying to figure it out before you finally give up and just look it up.
Well, when I first found the crate, I did that quest, but I didn't notice it there because I had the camera around the wrong way. This crate has just a few marks on it, which you can only see from one angle. So
honestly, this just sounds nostalgic. Like,
I know,
it used to be every game was like this.
There is a degree of nostalgia, but there's also a lot of frustration, and we could do without that, please.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't even say it's really nostalgia. It's just bad quest design to let a side quest tick like that when it can A, be permanently missable, and B, can not reasonably be done without a select party member, and it's still being in the side quest list. So if you're going to try and complete the area or the game, and you cannot return to this area in that playthrough after you leave it.
Once you leave the first,
after Act 1, that's it. It's gone. It's permanently missable.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, you can actually break that particular quest if you do something very specific with that crate, but I forget what it is. And it's not something that's implausible for the average user to do.
Well, there's two ways of recovering the oranges in this case. The guy who stole them is required for the quest. And if you can kill him and just take the oranges off him, which not only tanks your reputation with almost all of your possible party members at that point in the game, but also closes off that part of the companion's quest chain. Or you can try and persuade him, in which case you've basically got to build your stats up and have the right stats at that point in time. Or the right party member.
I've never played a Western-style RPG without dumping piles and piles of points into my persuade skills.
Persuade skills in these games are just too useful.
It's unreasonable not to have it. In fact, Skyrim was actually a relief to some extent in that respect, in that while you could, get the easy way through using speech skill, it almost never had any hefty effect. Like doing things the other way was usually only one step more inconvenient.
Yeah. Like
as opposed to you can't access 1/3 of the game because you can't talk people into showing it to you, which is what a lot of them used to be like.
Yeah, like you could persuade someone to give you a key to a door, or you could just wait for them to walk away and pick the lock. That was really about the extent of the persuade skill in Skyrim.
Yeah, and while from some points of view that's a failing in an RPG, it's also it gives you the freedom not to spend all your time worrying about your speech skill. Yeah. And I think that would have been really detrimental in a game like Skyrim, where all of your skills are so grindable, it's just soul destroying actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you've just got to find that one guy in Riften or whatever who has a conversation loop, and then just tune out and watch something on your other monitor while you click over and over again for half an hour, and then get your speech skill to max, and then go outside and get one shot by a bandit because average level is king in Skyrim.
Yep. Dear. One day someone will make a Western RPG where persuasion actually helps.
Well, if it's not persuasion, it's lockpicking and thievery that's always busted.
Yeah, that's the other
lockpicking and thievery. No, I think with lockpicking and thievery, it's always either useless or busted.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of middle ground.
Yeah, they usually don't overlap. But in every single Western RPG I played, if you always have to have a talker, even when speech isn't really overpowered, it's still a good thing to have. Somebody's got to do the talking of the group.
Yeah.
But half of them as well. If it's not persuasion, it always seems to be thieving that takes its place, or thievery of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to pick the locks. Because inevitably you'll see a chest in a dungeon with generic lock in front of it, and you don't have any keys left.
Yep.
Depending on the game, though, the real discriminating point there is whether or not busting the chest open will break the things inside it. Because
yes.
I know Neverwinter Nights invented that little canard quite late in the piece, so it was almost always strictly redundant to take lockpicking skills in early Neverwinter Nights modules. Because you could just bash the chests open, bash the doors open, that sort of thing. Eventually, the problem was if you used a character who did mundane damage using mundane means, you would have to sit there in front of a which had 40, 50 hit points, doing 1 hit point per 6-second combat.
Yeah,
forever.
The first game I think I ever saw that implemented some kind of penalty for bashing on the chest was Knights of the Old Republic 1. I think they did in that game.
Yeah, I think it did.
I think that's the first game I ever saw him do it in.
Yeah. So yeah, Divinity 2, getting back on track, I'm still enjoying the game. I think combat is going to take a bit more getting used to because it's largely about combining surfaces more than anything else.
It plays more like a real-time strategy game, I find, or single-player RTS like Disgaea than a traditional Western RPG.
Yeah. Like, you could just wail on the enemy, but you get a lot more mileage out of it by using the terrain and coating it in crap and combining those various types of crap to create more effects.
Yeah.
Or in the case of my character, because I picked up Summoning, or I believe it's Conjurer as the base class, covering the floor in crap and then creating a monster out of said crap.
Yeah, you know, normally I would assume that you were like, you're just using that as an arbitrary fill-in word, but ever since Slime Rancher, I'm never 100% sure.
You make money by selling literal crap in that game. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good game. Like, I'm liking the characters. There's a DLC character who is basically a very stuck-up squirrel riding around on a skeletal cat, but he's also a knight because reasons. He doesn't do anything though. You can't use him in combat. He just snarks at you if you talk to him.
Yeah.
Or rather, he snarks at his cat.
I will give the game credit on one part though, where its combat does feel very well balanced, and the gameplay has a curve to it that makes sense on normal, where the game doesn't become trivial at the end. It feels like stuff keeps getting harder, and it makes sense in a linear way where you're learning as you're playing.
Yep.
Which is something, unfortunately, I have to praise nowadays. So you kind of need all your party members to, be able to do their job and fight too. Everybody has to be able to punch something. If you have somebody that has not got any points in their punchy skills, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Especially later in the game. Everybody's got to be able to punch stuff.
Yep.
Even the bard.
There isn't a bard, at least in the...
Yeah, there is.
Oh, wait, yes, there is.
The girl.
Yeah.
The redhead.
The redhead.
She is 100% base bard unless you spec her into something else.
One thing I actually do really like is when you first get a companion, you can just select their base spec. Like, they'll have a default one, but you can tell them to spec into something else instead.
Yeah, like, my stat distribution also works for all these. Would you like me to switch to them?
Yeah.
Is effectively what they say in so many RP words.
Yeah. Or if you really want to, you can tell them to go and spec into something they're completely not used to and just go from there.
Would not recommend doing that in general, but...
Not early on, no, because then you end up with a gimped character until they gain a few levels.
Well, I mean, what if one of your characters is like Kimahri?
Kimahri?
Kimahri from Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the point I ever actually used him.
Well, that's the thing, right? he had theory crafted on paper. He was the best character in the game.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that all of his default paths for advancing through the sphere grid left him as fundamentally weaker in every area than his numbers would suggest. It was just like the design of his natural advancement, the way he would typically progress, was really, really bad. And the way you made him good was to basically do something completely counterintuitive and send him way off to some other corner of the sphere grid to start off.
Yeah. He had a really strange build. Like, he's a blue mage crossed with a dragoon. And it's very,
it's like
very
they couldn't put a blue mage and a dragoon in, so they tried to do it at the same time.
Yeah. Like, most of the other characters were some mashup. Like, Yuna was a summoner cross white mage and things like that. But in a lot of the other characters' cases, there's a lot of overlap between the two. Kimahri, not so much.
Yeah, didn't make any sense. But
no.
Yeah, statistically, he's much more suited to just be a powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the sphere grid does not accommodate using him as a powerhouse.
No. He can be stupid good, but it just takes way too much effort.
I never used Catman, so I have no idea.
As a character, he was also pretty much... They were going for the stoic type, but all that really did is made him kind of a non-entity.
Like, the only thing I remember about his story, and the only thing that I think actually happened, was there are two dudes. You have no horn. oh, we respect you now after you punch us in the face.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's all I remember.
And additionally to that, I remember the fact that he was the midget.
Yeah, he was also a midget. He's regular human size. Well, actually,
the midget version of Alonso.
Yeah. So yeah, I like Final Fantasy for 10, but most of the time you even forget Kimahri's there.
Yeah.
The weakest character in an otherwise great game. So that's pretty much my week with all the tangents it brings. So, Vol, did you actually accomplish anything this week?
Well, my week was taken up with other concerns largely. And not too long after the show last week, I was contacted by my family to say that my grandmother had passed away.
Mm.
And so the rest of my week was basically taken up by me trying to find a way of getting to Northland for the funeral, and then me being there and then coming back and recovering from having to travel almost the entire length of the country twice at short notice.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really get a huge amount done, and I've taken a pretty low key approach to everything since I got back. So even though it's one of those things, right? Like you aren't doing anything, but you're still somehow exhausted.
Yep.
And also, a grave looks like a small hole. It takes a surprising amount of effort to fill it.
Yes.
Probably.
It's actually rather worrying. The local cemetery here tends to take a very pragmatic approach. They just keep a backhoe on hand.
Oh, the hole was prepared for us by the cemetery. It's just that the Williams family is big on doing everything themselves. Which includes burying our dead. So
yeah, traditionally it's everyone throws a handful in and then it's shoveled in by the gravekeeper.
No, this graveside service was BYO shovel.
Oh boy.
So yeah, we spent half an hour in the hot sun filling our nana's grave in, but yeah, I think it's the way that she would have been content with, because it's the way our family does things. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was a nice service, insofar as it was low key like she would have wanted, and we did everything ourselves. So yeah, but it did leave me pretty pooped. Not least because the funeral was on Ash Wednesday, and I'm the only Catholic in the family, which meant that I was the only one who was starving for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a compulsory fasting day for Catholics. So all of the above effort was done with a blood sugar level of 0. So I was pretty worn out by the time it was all over.
It's a shame too, because if I recall, after all the running around you did making preparations, the best you could eat the day before was McDonald's.
Well, I didn't have time because I spent all my time calling the airport and the travel services and whatnot to try and work out how I was going to get a flight and finance said flight. So
yeah, Ari, you'll probably be able to confirm or deny this, but at least in Australia and New Zealand, if you want to get anywhere at the last minute on the flights, you're going to get fleeced.
Oh, you may not even get there at the last minute in the US. It's so bad. If you're paying a stupid premium, you're lucky.
The deliberate overbooking of flights is less common in New Zealand.
Yeah. Where I am, though, it is very, very common because, hey, the mines just book in advance.
Yeah. So the flight cost me $1,300.
Woof.
Yeah. But supposedly I can get a pretty hefty rebate on that once I can assemble the documentation to prove that it was a bereavement. Mm-hmm. Because our national airline offers compassionate discounts for people who have to travel suddenly because of bereavement.
Yep.
Seems like a pretty good deal.
It does.
Once I can
just got to prove it.
I hope I'll be able to sort that out. It would have been easy to do, but the newspaper, when they posted the death notice, misspelled my name.
Of course
so now it's non-conclusive. So I need to get some supporting documentation.
Thank you, newspaper. Keeping up that journalistic integrity.
I don't know at what point the process happened. Can't have everything. At any rate, what else did I do? I watched the movie for Irregular Magic High School, which I picked up on Blu-ray a while back and hadn't got around to watching. It's a very strange approach compared to what is usually done, in that what they did was they animated a story that hasn't been made into an anime yet, and it's not just the next thing that happens after the anime series. It's like it's several arcs after that. So the only people who will know what is going on and who the characters involved in who the characters involved in the story are the people who are reading the light novels. People who watch the anime would logically assume that, oh well, that will give me the information I need to watch the movie, but no. you need to be reading the light novels. I've only read half of the last arc that's pertinent to it, so I don't have the full story, but I had enough of it from the stuff that I've read to make sense of it. But it seems a very strange approach. As far as movies go, there's nothing remarkable about it. It's like most anime movies, which are sort of purpose-made. It's pretty much just an episode type of deal. I don't think it's as good as the Index movie, given that they do the same sort of thing. It's all right. It's not worth writing home about. I don't think anybody other than a fan of the franchise would want to watch it. I also played through Cyber Dimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses Online, which has been sitting in the backlog for a while. It's a very short game. I finished it with a certain amount of derping about and leaving the computer unattended at a clocked time of 20 hours. But considering how cheap those games are dollar-wise, I mean, they usually come out expensive, but they go down in price really quick and on deep discount regularly. So I don't really expect a huge amount of playtime from them, but I got about 20 hours out of it, and I rather enjoyed it, but it was pretty much standard Neptunia stuff. Like, you're not going to like it if you don't like Neptunia normally, and if you do like Neptunia normally, well, it's got stuff for you. The Neptunia characters being the Neptunia. Mechanically, there's not much to write home about. It's pretty shallow mechanically, much like the Dynasty Warriors outing for Neptunia. It's just, it's got barely enough features to qualify as part of the genre, and that's about it. It was sort of fun, and the game is basically taking pot shots at the latest, as it were. The particular pop culture phenomena that have happened since the last time they went on an outing to take pot shots at pop culture phenomena. Sword Art Online gets ragged on a lot.
Sword Art Online deserves to be ragged on.
So given the setting is the characters all participating in the beta for the newest MMO to come out in their world, there's a lot of ragging on Sword Art Online taking place. It's a pretty prevalent theme throughout. And there are a few other things that are referenced as well, like oftentimes the references are very, very blunt, and they'll like change one letter in something, and so it's very obvious. Other times it's a bit more subtle. So I'm almost 100% sure that Vert is channeling darkness from Konosuba quite a few times. There will be, on several particular occasions that happen during the game, rather than a running theme, she seems to do the same thing of thinking that it would be rather exciting to get cornered and beaten up by the monsters sort of thing.
Oh dear. So she just somewhere out of the blue decides she's going to get her jollies by tanking.
Yeah. Even though she's the group's enchanter. So
yeah.
But there's a few little things like that, and the thing that gets jabbed at most by far is Sword Art Online. There's in the setting there is several NPCs comment that there seems to be a plague of characters who all want to be dark swordsmen who start their name with Kitty. But yeah, and there's a major character called Kiria, and there's a background NPC called Kirio, and he's commented on later as being the only player who's unlocked the dual swords unique skill.
Of course he is.
But
did they immediately have half a dozen characters running around with dual swords behind him?
It's pretty much like, it reminds me of Dungeons and Dragons characters post the creation of Drizzt.
Ugh.
But yeah. So I got 20 hours out of that. I enjoyed it. I don't know how much I'll do in the post game. I tried a little bit before the show, but I was getting wailed on, and I think I'd need to really sit down and make a plan for going to advance my gear so that I can make it efficient. But even if I did that, I would not have accomplished anything except advancing my gear in a game that is now over. So unless I decide that I, for some reason, want to get all of the achievements, then there's not really much point in me continuing with that. The game ends twice, essentially. Like the credits roll about 3/4 of the way through, and then the credits roll again. Yeah. That being the case that there are two stories taking place. There's a story that is taking place for the characters who are people playing the game, and then there's the story that the characters are playing through as players of the game.
Huh.
And one finishes before the other. So like it ends up being, you resolve the major conflict and you go back and they're like, oh yeah, the Demon King, we're supposed to be killing the Demon King. Where were we up to in the story for that?
Yeah, that sounds about Neptunia.
Yeah. But I think that anybody who's really keen to play it will have played it already, so there's not really much point in giving a recommendation, but it's just new. It's just Neptunia. Everything about it is just Neptunia.
It's just glorious nonsense.
Yeah, it's very silly, as per usual.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think that I've really got much else to talk about, since there's sort of like a big hole in the middle of my week where I wasn't able to do anything productive. I haven't even really played any FGO this week, other than to periodically take a chunk out of my AP, building up my QP again. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get back to that, especially with the rerun of the Honoji whatchamacallit event, which will allow me to finally get Nobu. And after that will be the follow-up event, which is where the welfare for that is Cha-Cha, who is AoE Berserker. So having an MP5 AoE Berserker will probably be handy as well. That one, I believe, has a format where I think every player joins a side, and the two sides sort of push against each other, trying to accumulate points faster than the other, which I'm sure will end up getting doctored from the server control end, but it's another interesting format. And the sides are basically the Shinsegumi side and Nobu's side. So it'll basically be Okita fans versus Nobu fans.
Right. Alright, I'm expecting another full-on event of complete silliness.
Yep. But yeah, I don't think I've got much else to say this time around.
Alright. In that case, we might take it a slightly early break, because I know Ari's going to go on at length.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So let's take 5 minutes. Here's some music. I'll type some stuff to get my thoughts in order, and we'll do the thing that y'all are expecting me to do. A certain trigger will be pulled. We'll be back.
Bang, bang.
And we're back.
Yep. So you got that devil trigger to pull?
Yeah. So DMC5 came out this week. This whole week was spent freeing up as much free time as possible to just do what I do with video games with Devil May Cry 5.
Mm-hmm.
Which means in the last, let's see, I managed to pick it up on Thursday evening. So I got it 3 hours early because my local GameStop was giving them that early. So I got there at the 9 o'clock launch and got home and had it installed within 45 minutes and was playing by 10:30. I did not sleep all the way until work time. I went to work. I did not go to sleep when I got back, and I played through some more. The sun came up again, and I was still playing the video game, and I finally beat it.
So you haven't actually properly slept since that game came out?
So then I went to sleep for about 4 hours.
So no.
And then I got back up and started playing through it on easy mode this time, so I could get the rest of the collectibles and finish that playthrough.
Oh boy.
So yes, half measures are not a thing that's in my personal lexicon.
No.
I don't know how to do.
It's all or nothing for you.
It always has been.
Uh-huh.
So I think the fact that I was able to do that and did not get bored with it should be a pretty good indicator of I have a whole lot of positive things to say about the game. That said, I'm going to probably wind up mentioning a few of the nitpickier things. But I want to emphasize these are the nitpicks of a longtime series fan that probably do not have as much weight as I'm going to make it seem like they do in the long run. And they will be outweighed by the stuff I don't mention because we only have so much time. So the recommendation is up front, if you don't want any spoilers or to listen to the full opinion, it's worth $60 and more to go through and play it if you know what you're getting into. It's Devil May Cry again. It's back. We got it again.
Yay.
We're back on track.
No more Dino.
Yeah,
and
no
before
more...
think pieces about how it would have been better if they'd done a DLC.
Oh, I've already
Devil May Cry.
I've already ticked that off on the bingo card. I saw that today at least one time.
These people have no idea what they're talking about if they want Dino back.
Yeah.
Oh, they do know what they're talking about. It's just that they hate games that gamers like. That's the point.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, they just don't like us. It wasn't that they liked Dino May Cry. It was that they Dino
they
May
hate
Cry,
the people that like the old Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it was just it had developers that were making fun of people that play video games normally, and so that's why they were supporting it so hard. And it probably helped that it was a huge liberal showpiece the whole way with their version of what they think a conservative dystopia would look like.
Yeah.
Except like most left wing message pieces, it was incredibly hypocritical. Because I mean that game is one of the single most misogynistic games ever. And they still had the gall to present it as their ideal.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. Let's get into DMC 5. Because we've talked about Dino for many, many hours of our lives. And we can finally move past him. So first, let's address some of the concerns that were brought up in the announcement trailer and onwards after that. First off, Nico. People were worried when they saw Nico.
Mm-hmm.
Nico is played to be dumb and funny. She is not played seriously, and she is all the better for it. She is comic relief.
I think that most of that concern came from a place of we saw what happened last time they tried to do a new character.
Yeah.
Last time they tried to do a new character, we got Dino and Co, and it was awful. Remember how shallow and pointless the female sidekick in the Dino game was?
Cat, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was there just to tell Dino he licked squirrel semen. That's the only thing I remember her saying.
Oh, right. I forgot she says that. Yeah.
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 So
Class.
So yeah. Nico has ties to the main story. We knew this going into it, so this isn't a spoiler. And for the record, I will not be spoiling story stuff post Chapter 1.
Yeah.
So Prologue and Chapter 1 are fair game. And the Chapter 2, I guess, because that was in the demo. After that, I'm not spoiling anything. So that's your spoiler warning if that's the thing. And I'll be spoiling quite a few gameplay mechanics if you want to keep those, hidden. But I'm sure you're not going to remain unspoiled for long, so I would get on the game pretty fast. Nico is tied to the gunsmith grandma that made Ebony and Ivory for Dante.
Mm-hmm.
She is apparently her granddaughter, and she took up her grandma's work and is now driving around in the back of her truck with her workshop in the back to make Nero's new arms, because he got his Devilbringer cut off. And that's a bit of a problem because all of his powers came from the arm, and that was also his main gameplay mechanic. So to replace it, we have the Devil Breakers. And instead of getting new weapons like Dante does, Nico, when you beat a boss, will take a piece of it and turn it into a new Devil Breaker for you to use. And they go from the basic starter one, which is an electric blast that knocks foes back and does this pretty good chunk of damage, to one that gives you both a ground dodge and an air dodge, which I use most. The one that
demo.
Yeah, there's the one that shoots a rocket that acts as a dot if you hit somebody with it, or you can surf on it.
What?
And do crazy combos on it. Yeah, if you hold when you call it back to you, if you hold down the recall button, Nero will hop on top of the rocket and start surfing around, and he can do tricks on it that do damage. And as long as you get off of the stupid thing before it explodes, it doesn't waste the Devil Breaker. It comes back, and you can keep using it. But it does have a limited amount of health. So you can only do so many tricks and so much damage with it. It is not very practical to ever do that, but it looks really fun, and it's just fun for styling on people.
And that's really the point.
That's
the game
really the point.
as a whole.
Yeah.
That's all
on
you
harder
need.
difficulties. Yeah, on harder difficulties, you're going to get mauled doing it unless you're god tier at the game. But it is fun to do, especially when there's just a room full of little dudes, and you're like, I could just streak through these and get an SSS that way, or I could get on the rocket.
The correct answer is always get on the rocket.
Yeah. So it is a little hard to control because it does not turn very sharply. You have to angle yourself when the rocket's coming back to you, so you're going in a specific direction. And there's one blue orb where you have to go across what is effectively a rocket track that you cannot scale any other way, all the way to the top, which is very long and very hard. And yeah, that is the hardest blue orb fragment in the game to get.
Rocket track is a thing, apparently. The world is better for this.
Just there's a random rocket course that is incidentally designed by the archery year that's been in all the trailers. Then you get like
It makes it sound like a Metroid game.
Yeah. So the other ones are like you get one that's good at breaking guards and piercing shields and destroying pieces of equipment when you use it. I forget what its charge up effect is. And you get one that is just, when you activate it, you have a buff as long as you keep it active. And then the last one I think you get is the one that... oh no, there's two more. The next one you get is just your old Devilbringer again as an arm. It lets you do grapples. But after you beat the game, you can play as DMC4 Nero.
Oh, neat.
Well, a hybrid of DMC4 Nero and current one. And the unmapped button on your controller becomes mapped to the old Devilbringer stuff. Even though, you'll figure out stuff in the story that makes it kind of sort of not make sense, but whatever. You can use all of your old DMC4 Devilbringer moves instead of your Devil Breaker moves if you want. It is an option that you do not have to use, but it is probably the reason they lock away hard mode and higher going into the from the start of the game, because having it available is a huge boon when you've accidentally broken a Devil Breaker, which you can do either manually to get things off of you and cause a lot of damage, or you can get hit while you're performing any of the actions when they're not invulnerable. So, like the ones that are focused on evasion, they're a bit harder to break because you're invincible for parts of the dodge, not the whole one. This isn't Dark Souls where you get a bucket of invincibility frames every time you dodge. It doesn't happen. The invincibility frames are only at the very peak of the dodge and will not carry you all the way through a big beam attack or something like you can do in Dark Souls or any of those type of games. which is what people are complaining about a lot. You need to know what game you're playing. This isn't one of those type of games. You're not
everything is Dark Souls.
Everything is Dark Souls, yes.
Yeah, no. Just because you're running around in 3D with a sword and the game can get fairly difficult at times doesn't make it Dark Souls.
No, it's difficult. It's Dark Souls. I'm a game journalist. No.
So yeah. So yeah. Now the bigger problem comes though when you're using things like the aforementioned rocket arm, which I do not take into missions I'm not sure I can clear yet or haven't done yet, specifically for the reason that I can put that dot on somebody and it's going to do a fair amount of damage, but if I get tapped once, the whole arm's destroyed. And I have to go buy another one with red orbs.
But like surfing.
Yeah. You have to get pretty good at predicting the enemy patterns and knowing what everything does before you are going to feel safe using something like that. Or the power-up one that gives you a passive buff to your Red Queen and Blue Rose. Yeah, that's lovely, but if you get tapped at all by anything, it's broken, and you're going to lose it. And you need a stock of these things for certain loadouts on the really harder missions where it's going to be helpful to have a certain one. The Buster Arm is not as valuable, even though it's very expensive early on, because you can just access the Devil Bringer at no penalty after you clear the game once and play DMC4 Nero. So that one's not as valuable, but it still breaks all the diddly dang time because the grabs take forever on some enemies, and you have to know what enemies not to do a ground grab on, especially. Like the basic Pride enemies from DMC3 are back with a new name and a slightly different appearance. But if you grab one of these stupid things on the ground, near ages to do the execution with it. He's going to slowly pull out his gun and shoot it in the head and then slowly put it on the ground and step on its face, and it's not worth it doing it there, and you're just going to get hit by something else, and that arm is going to get broken if you use the Devil Breaker one. But it's redundant anyway because you get an unbreakable Devil Bringer after you beat the game. The last one is you can slow time in a field in front of you, and I don't actually know what its charge up effect is either. And then we have the DLC ones, which are mostly recolors, or 3 recolors, the ones I mentioned before, and the Mega Buster.
Those Mega Mans.
Yeah, then the Mega Buster does what you think it does. The Devil Bringers you get in level are a mix between randomized and preset. So like on the pathway that leads up to the blue orb with all the rocket paths will have a ton of punchline Devil Breakers scattered everywhere, so you can attempt it multiple times if you really screw it up. But on the normal pathway, there are plenty of them that you can just find a Mega Buster laying on the ground because it's totally random.
That makes perfect sense.
So yeah, sticking with the characters and how they behave, specifically Nico. Nico's role in this game is the shop for even when it's unreasonable for her to be the shop. There are some points when they will put the old save statue back, but she acts as the save statue effectively that always would show up before a boss store so you can rejig your equipment or buy new abilities right before the boss. And how this happens, I explained it a little bit last week, but it's even more ridiculous than I noticed in the demo, or 2 weeks ago whenever I talked about the demo.
Mm-hmm.
You will have abandoned her to figure out something to do on the ground level going into the tree, for instance. And you are now exploring the tree, and you will find a payphone in the demon tree that has still somehow got its landlines connected to the landline system, despite now being hundreds of stories up in the air somehow.
And you're always complaining about the telecommunications network. Sounds pretty reliable to me.
Well, to be fair, we don't know what country Redgrave is in, so... But that's the name of the new city, but you are effectively only in it for a few chapters before you go into the big tree. And, yeah. So, yeah, Nero or whoever is there drops a quarter in the payphone and calls Nico, and she finds a way to get there. Even if that direction is at ground level, there is literally nothing around you. She will bust up through the concrete of the road.
Just
grill first.
Right.
Driving vertically up a hole that is car-shaped. And this is lampshaded very seriously near the end of the game, but never explained at all. And it's really funny. So yeah, you're on the 5th floor of an apartment building, and there's a payphone that got thrown up there from the road. It still works. Nico comes in from above you somehow, even though every building near you is lower in elevation than the floor you're on. It's silly stuff like that that's intentionally silly and ridiculous. So that endeared Nico a lot. I still don't really like her very much. She's a little too sassy for me to like as a character, but all the worries and initial this could be bad thoughts I had when I first saw the original trailer about her are pretty well alleviated.
Oh, good.
And she doesn't say anything about squirrel semen at any point.
No, but she is dumb. Like,
dumb is fine.
She's a ditzy genius. Like, she's the stereotypical ditzy engineer genius girl that we've seen a lot of times in other media.
Mm-hmm.
That's her job. She is good with gadgets, but she's a ditz.
Like the latest episode of Slime Anime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that has been one concern alleviated. The other concerns, the graphics engine is the RE7 engine, presumably because it's the most modern engine Capcom had, and they wanted to do more stuff on it to get it more exposure and get people more practice with it.
That explains why the tree looks like it's made out of meat most of the time.
Well, there's another reason for that, but spoilers. Everything
because the tree is made out of meat.
It is made out of meat. Not
quite, but there's story reasons for everything that a lot of people were raising their eyebrows out, stuff like that. There a surprising number of things you'll find out later in the story is my answer to a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. The engine itself, for the most part, looks really good in gameplay once you adjust. If you were coming in expecting the old anime style, you're not going to get it, unfortunately. But now I think it was only really a bad shock when we first saw the trailer because it was so different then. But we've had time with the new trailers and announcements to acclimatize to it. And other than Lady's face, everything seems to be okay.
What did they do to Lady?
I mean, she just looks weirdly ugly in all of the shots that I've seen.
Now, if you have the deluxe edition, there's a fix to this. You can put sunglasses on her face and she looks fine. If you give her an alternate costume, there's an option.
Except her chest has still been deflated. That's all.
Yeah, it's not that bad. You still get them quite literally completely naked in some scenes in the game. So this was not for much censorship. I think this was an ink suit actor thing, where they just couldn't find anybody with those proportions. Yeah, so that is definitely what it seems like. Let's see, what about the cutscene? Oh, Lady and Trish, right. So they practically have nothing to do with the story. They're there just to, because they're Lady and Trish. Yeah. In both forms of fan service, that's why they're there. They're not very interesting, so it doesn't really matter. But you can fix Lady's face because every single character, even the side characters, if you can buy a costume for them in the store, you can go to what they call cutscene options and change all the alternate characters' costumes as well.
This sounds like it could potentially get very silly.
It does, and it can. You can make Trish into a toned down version of Gloria from DMC4. 11 years, spoilers. She dressed up as this incredibly tang, like starts with a G in Japanese, woman with blonde hair and a white suit.
Ganguro.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so she looks like one of those, and you can make her look like that again, and then you have all the silly costumes you can unlock for everybody, which actually are fairly normal alternate colorations so far. But I've only cleared normal and then easy mode. So I've heard there's much more to unlock in the game as you keep going.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could potentially get extremely silly.
Yeah. So, and I know for sure there are super costumes in the game, like every other one. When you beat Dante Must Die, you get a super version with a super costume with a limited devil trigger you can equip that reduces your score. So it's not practical to use when you're going for S ranks, but you can use it in for funsies play.
Nice.
When you just want to go and wreck everybody.
Yeah, but it will tank your score by half, so you can't S-rank missions with it. So, before we transition into V and Dante, and I guess I could talk about the mission structure of the game and the scoring system particularly. So previously, the way it worked and how it determined whether or not you got an S rank on a mission or not, you would need to get an S, 2 S's, and an A in any mixture between 3 categories: red orbs collected, which are just, enemies drop them, you can find them in the environment, etc. How fast you completed the level, and the amount of style points you got from combat. So the longer and higher your style rating was kept high, and the more damage you were able to do while it was high, the higher your style rank would get. And this used to be the old system. You would need 2 S's and an A to get an S rank. Now, this had a lot of unintended consequences in DMC4 because they just didn't have the time to properly balance a lot of stuff, including S rank tuning, particularly for easy mode. Human difficulty was harder than Dante Must Die and Hell in Hell mode because to get S ranks on and to get the trophy for getting an S rank in every mission.
What, things just not live long.
Yeah, you did not have enough time to get your style rating high enough. Some missions were thought to be mathematically impossible to get an S rank on, and that Capcom would have to patch it. Until some genius found that if you frame perfect some Royal Guard shenanigans, you can do it just barely.
Because Royal Guard doesn't do any damage.
Yeah, you have to just guard and then counterattack with Royal Guard to get your ranking skyrocketed. And that was a huge problem in DMC4, and the big reason a lot of people who thought about maybe going for S ranks on everything didn't do it. Because doing it on the harder difficulties is just a matter of getting good, but doing it on the easier difficulty is literally sitting in training mode trying to get perfect combos you have to do 100% optimally with frame perfect inputs. And people just didn't want to do that, and I didn't either. But thankfully, they have adjusted the S rank requirements for each mission and each difficulty of that mission in this game. So human mode requires you to have less, for instance, than higher difficulties. I was able to S rank all but 2 missions going through human mode before I did the red orb grind. So that was a big problem they fixed. But they've also changed how the ranking system works in general. Now, weighted heavier than anything else is the amount of style points you have at the end of the mission. That is far and away the biggest factor in what decides your rating at the end of a mission. So, for instance, all that old stuff I was talking about, red orbs collected and speed, that is now in a tab called extra that contributes to your bid a little bit. But getting an S rating and speed in that extra tab only gives you like 1,000 points towards getting the S rank, whereas usually you'll be coming out with 5,000 or 6,000 style points on an S-rated mission. So it is not nearly as important, and nor is collecting blue orbs. Just doing things well and basic and being stylish like the game wants you to is how you're gonna make it by in this game and get your S ranks. So I'm very happy you don't have to speedrun stuff anymore. Like, I was able to S rank missions. I literally took hours derping around the level trying to find something that may or may not be there because there's no guide yet. And while I was getting all the collectibles. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this change. The fact that each individual little bit on the result screen is not graded, but you just get an overall grade that's the cumulative points between everything you did. That is much, much better. And puts emphasis on player choice, which is a big part of the design philosophy of this game, is player choice. Mechanically, people were up in arms about purchasing upgrades, particularly in this game, because they figured out you can buy red orbs in the shop. Now, I was never worried about this because DMC4 and DMC4 Special Edition both did the exact same thing, and Special Edition was not too long ago. And it was not a problem there. You would be drowning in Proud Souls before you knew it. And in addition to this, every single Devil May Cry game, except for Dino, had a dedicated spot to farm whatever the currency for that game was.
Okay, so if you do it, it's just there for the lazy.
Yeah, it is there for people that really wanted to make combo videos on hour 1 by buying all the upgrades. And you can also buy the blue orbs, but you can't go over the blue orb cap, and you will cap it out exactly, which will max out your health, but if you find every single fragment in the game. So there's literally no reason to buy those. So yeah, the DLC is not a big deal. It feels like something that was either a joke because the last two games did it and it was funny because of how useless it was, or it was there to tick off a box to investors and say, look, we put microtransaction in. Those are guaranteed to make money, right? Because they're not going to look too deep into it.
Are they going yet?
And yeah. Yeah. So, or that, or they just really hope somebody would be that lazy and that stupid and throw money at them. Or a combination of all three.
Yeah.
The sad reality is that there's probably people out there who did buy it because they're too lazy or ignorant to farm the normal way.
Yeah. So if you're worried about how long it's going to take you to get some stuff, let me put this in perspective. For $2, you can buy 100,000 orbs. Most upgrades, low tier upgrades, cost between 3,000 and 15,000 orbs. Mid tier around 25, and about in every single piece of equipment, there's one ability that costs 50,000. So that's the state of the nation with how much upgrades cost. And for $2, you can get 100,000. There's only one ability that costs any more than that. Two, actually. One of them is each character has something called EX Provocation, which is a special taunt that takes longer, makes your taunt take longer, but it looks cooler and gets you more style points if and when you buy it. And that costs 3 million to get. There is another upgrade for the cowboy hat Faust that increases its effectiveness to its max rate, which requires 500,000 red orbs. Now, this should be a red flag because it's a weapon and doesn't fit the pattern of everything else. That's because Faust's whole shtick is to get you more red orbs.
Okay.
If you want, Mission 13 is a dedicated grinding mission. It is there as a multiplayer arena you can play with other people in, and show off combos in, and farm red orbs. That is the whole point of Mission 13. It is very, very, very short. And there's a checkpoint you can continuously reload, intentionally placed right before you drop into the last room, which has 4 monster spawn points that will spawn for a good 15 minutes before they run out of monsters for you to throw the stupid hat at.
Oh yeah, that just screams farming level.
This was clearly intended to be a farming level. If you speed through it, it takes all of 2 minutes. And there are no collectibles in the level at all. This level was designed to be this, to get you enough red orbs to buy all the skills. If you sit there with Faust for an hour, you're going to have millions more orbs than you know what to do with. So the microtransactions are not a problem. All you have to do is go to the third room where all the monster spawners are, right after the checkpoint, switch Dante to Gunslinger, and start mashing whatever your style button is, your style attack button is, to throw the hat all over the place. And he'll throw it in a circle around him, and everything's head that it touches gets a Faust hat. And if you hit something with a Faust hat, it'll spew out red orbs like confetti. But if they hit you, you lose red orbs.
Does it actually put a hat on the enemies?
Yes, there's only one mob in the game that cannot get a hat. I've tested it on just about everything.
That's pretty awesome.
Even the monsters spawning little doorways, or the little door, they're just basically 2 pillars of flesh with a portal between them. You can put a hat on that. He can literally stick this hat on anything other than the poster boy big bad that you see on the box.
Right.
And only in one of his forms at that.
That's still pretty crazy.
Yeah, so putting a hat on something is effectively making a bet that you can hit that thing more times than it's going to hit you. And as long as you punch it, you're going to have it shoot out red orbs like confetti. Now, Faust also has another move where while you're throwing the hat, after it hits something, or even if it doesn't hit something, as long as something already has a hat, because you can put multiple hats on people. When Dante catches the hat on the return throw, if you press the throw button at the right moment as he's pulling his hand back, he'll put the hat back on his head and strike a pose, and everything with a hat will have an explosion that has a very unique effect on it happen to him. They'll take damage, they'll get popped up into the air, and they'll get vacuumed towards Dante. So he can do it again, and again, and again.
So you turn a battlefield into a Michael Jackson stick?
Yeah, and then
right.
In addition to that, the explosion does not harm things around it. This was an ability meant clearly for orb farming. So it can't blow up the monster spawners. Unless you put a hat on the spawner itself. So all these people that are up in arms about microtransactions and said they're not going to play the game because of it, they're stupid. Like, if they're still holding that position after the game's already come out, they're stupid. That's the way it is. They don't actually care. They just were looking for something to be mad about. It's not a big deal at all. That's been my big bugbear with the people I've seen talking about the game since it's come out. That I've seen the most of is people complaining about microtransactions and buying power. But when that is not the case at all, you will naturally cap out all your skills with normal gameplay by the end of your second playthrough, barring the maybe a few 50,000 orb skills and the 3 million taunts for each character. But yeah. So that is the way that works. And once you run out of red orbs, you can use, or you bought everything you can with red orbs for abilities in the shop, you can buy every single Devil Breaker that you run into with Nero. You can buy from the shop, and you can buy as many copies as you want. I'm in triple digits with all of them at this point, and I assume it keeps going from there. I don't know when it stops, so you have stuff to spend your red orbs on, or when you're playing Dante, you can put the Faust hat back on, and it has an offensive mode where you just spend red orbs to do insane attacks that take a long time to wind up, but you can nuke an entire room with an asteroid if you want, made of however many red orbs you stuck into that thing. I think it caps at 1 million.
Wow.
So
just
wow. There is stuff to spend it on. So yeah, gold orbs are handled totally different, as is health and recovery in general in the game. You now get a login bonus for a single player game, pretty much, which is really weird, when you sign on every day. Okay?
Uh-huh.
But they're also scattered in the levels like normal in moderately kind of sort of not really hidden places if you just look around a lot. If you're paying attention, you'll be able to find about 7 per playthrough. And they respawn every day. And higher difficulties have more spawns of gold orbs than lower difficulties. So there'll be new gold orbs you didn't get if you happen to, clear an entire difficulty and then go straight to another one and then to another one as you're playing through the game, if you do that all in like less than 48 hours. So you'll be able to continuously play and find more gold orbs. Now, you won't really need them because restarting from the checkpoint doesn't really hurt you very much. It's just if you need to kill the boss. I have not used a checkpoint yet, but I'm also just now starting hard mode. So yeah, I have not felt it necessary to use them. I have 21 of them sitting around, which is 19 more than you could carry, or not 19 more, 20 more than you could carry in DMC4. But there are no more health recovery items. Period. Okay. The only way to get health back is
with points for using them anyway. So
yeah, nobody used them. It was, and this seems like a fix to the system of, oh well, I have all these vital stars and devil stars, but if I use them, it defeats the entire purpose of the game. So they're like, sure, okay, if you really just want to cheat your way through the story, you can do it with gold orbs, or even spend a whole big chunk of red orbs to revive if you don't have any gold left. If you're that bad, read Games Journalist. You can, but this whole rejigging of the inventory system seems to accommodate the fact that nobody wanted to even think about Vitality Stars or Devil Stars anymore. Because anybody that actually likes the series and sticks with it and is a big fan of it doesn't care that they're there, and they just become a nuisance whenever you're stuck in a situation.
Well, as somebody who's bad at these games, having them, even if you consider them a usable resource like you do if you're bad at these games like I am, you still end up just saving them for a rainy day and never using them anyway.
Yeah. You might blow some on the last boss if you're just playing through on a casual playthrough maybe. But you're just going to have a stack of 9 of these things, and they're not going to do anything. So I'm actually a much bigger fan of the current system they have. To compensate for it, they do have a lot more gold orbs floating around. And there are more health pickups in the area that you can get that are just green orb bundles that you'll see laying around, and double trigger bundles as well with white orbs this time instead of purple. So yeah, that's most of the base mechanics that have been rejigged or changed in some way that are significant to the series as a whole. The next 2 things are, this list is, I need to try and move as fast as I can. Then the next two things, we'll start with V. We'll save Dante for last. So Nero is Nero. He plays like Nero from DMC4 with, instead of Devil Bringer, you have Devil Breaker. And then once you beat the game once, if you want DMC4 Dante, or Nero, you can have DMC4 Nero. V is an interesting character, and that he doesn't really have one on purpose. It is clearly meant for him himself to have very little character and just be a plot device. He does not have any kind of history with Dante or Nero. He's just there for the story, and the characters don't trust him either. He is clearly up to some shady business, but he's being a pretty nice guy with them, but they've all got a raised eyebrow around him. So he himself doesn't really have a character to talk about. What he does have is a chicken.
What?
Well, it's a crow. It's a crow, but everybody calls it Little Chicky in the game. Or Dante and Nico do.
Right.
And Nero does too. And this thing is the actual character. Whereas V is the straightest straight man you could have in a comedy routine, the chicken is the funny man. And the way the funny man gets his stuff going in this game is by harassing V the whole time and telling him what he's doing is a dumb idea. Like, V, I don't think we should fight that dude. He looks way stronger than you. No. I think we got this. And then the chicken will, like, steal his walking stick and fly away with it. Like, no, bad V. Stop it. Or the chicken will be harassing V and making headway with it, and Nico will drive the truck into it. By accident. Coming from above or somewhere or underground or something. And this is where most of V's character comes from, is the chicken's interactions with people. It is less V having interactions and more just being the plot that hangs around the chicken that has the actual character interactions.
He's a chicken conveyance device.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. And yeah, his other two pets, Shadow is a panther. And you might remember these things from DMC1. They were far and away the hardest enemies to fight in DMC1. And the chicken is named Griffin after the boss in DMC1. And the summon for his Devil Trigger is Nightmare, which was also a boss in Devil May Cry 1. So a lot of his stuff is throwbacks to how those bosses worked. The Shadow Panther works just like the Shadow enemies in DMC1, and they basically did a good job of incorporating every single move that the original Shadows had into a controllable pet, which is really cool to use, although a little bit wonky at first. V takes a good bit of learning to figure out, but getting S ranks with him is far and away the easiest in the game of all the characters. And the reason for that is the chicken. Because the chicken has an upgradable charge shot that at its last level sends out 5 pillars of lightning in front of him that cover a huge area and hit every single enemy for what would normally be charge shot damage and style points on one character, and you have 5 of them.
Huh.
So what you unfortunately wind up doing with V the whole time is holding down whatever the shoot button is. And on every character, I recommend rebinding shoot to something you can keep held down the whole time you're playing in case you need to save a shot.
Why was it by default?
It's like circle, I think, or square or something. It's square, I think. But I rebind it to R2 because you're going to be holding this button down all the diddly dang time. And especially with V, when you have to control both Shadow and Griffin together while keeping V out of trouble, it helps to have Griffin's button in a much more accessible place so that you can be comboing something with Shadow and letting Griffin sit in the back and charge up his abilities. Griffin's abilities are all chargeable bar 1, I think. And he is clearly meant to be held in the back and used as artillery, while Shadow does most of your damage. And this takes a lot of getting used to. But once you get a passable level with it, you don't even have to be an expert. You're going to be SSS ranking every single combat encounter just from the chicken alone shooting lightning everywhere. As long as you're careful not to accidentally hold lock on and back while you're charging the chicken, because that'll make him just shoot a little ball in a circle. The Panther is tough to combo with, because when your character is not in front of you, the camera's not focused on it, it's like trying to combo with a character while the camera is in the doorway across the street instead of behind your character. it's hard to tell what part of the animation he's in to know what direction you got to hold the stick. In addition to that, you got to learn to hold the stick in the direction that's relevant to V. So if Shadow has a move that needs you to hold back and push forward, if you're to the enemy's left and Shadow's facing the enemy head on, you need to push forward with V instead of the direction that Shadow's facing. And this sounds intuitive, but it's really not, because you will get in a headspace where you're going, okay, Shadow's the one doing the combo, therefore all the inputs are from his point of view, right? Even if you know that's not the case, your brain will default to it while there's 50 other things going on in a fight. And it takes a while to get it all sorted in your brain. In addition to that, both of your movement abilities are tied to one of your animals. If you double jump, Griffin will interrupt his charge, stop whatever he was doing to be your double jump, and you'll have to recharge it back up. If you're comboing with Shadow and you start dashing or moving quickly by just sprinting away from something, he will slither underneath you and become your dash. So this will interrupt what they're doing, and you'll have to pull them back out of the ground again, which has a summoning animation tied to it and can take a while. So you have to be very careful with how V works. And then, in addition, you have to figure out how to get enemies under control while you're going off to get an execution with V himself, because V ain't got anything at all. The dude is just a walking finishing blow button. And if he can be hit while doing those executions. So you've got to find a way to keep the area clear and not let yourself get hit so that you A, don't lose style, and B, don't get hit and have the enemy come back to life by keeping everything else out of the way. Because if you fail an execution with V, the enemy pops back to life with a quarter health. So I've only had that happen a few times, but it is something to keep in the back of your head while you're playing him, and it's just a whole lot of mechanics thrown together. He is the least utilized in missions of all three characters and has the smallest move pool to purchase. And he is mostly active in the later half of Act 1 and the first half of Act 2, with only one mission really in the lead up to the final act, before it basically becomes the Nero and Dante show. So yeah, Nero has a lot of presence at the beginning and end of the game, and Dante is the second half of Act 2 onwards, where he takes the show and is there for most of it. But yeah, so that is the layout for V. I'm not as offended by his character as I was worried I would be, since he is not so much a character as a plot device. And he is fun to play, if not tedious, after a while. He is not somebody I would recommend doing their levels over and over again with, because the indirect pet control, with no options for the player character itself, is not something that stays fun for very long if you're doing his missions back to back to back to back.
With all these pets and things running around, what exactly is the camera doing during all this?
It's always behind V's back, and like all the other characters, it has the same perspective.
Okay, that could cause problems.
Yeah. So the idea is you get positioned to lock onto the correct target you want to, and place V in a position that's out of the way of combat and gives you the best field of view, so that you can play the game from your pets, with your pets. But yeah, that's what I meant with controller stick directions are a little tricky with him, because you have to make them relative to you, but your pets are often facing different directions. Yeah. So it can throw off what direction you think an attack will go, or you'll accidentally do it from the perspective of your pet, because that's where you were going to attack if you were playing a normal character. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just a muscle memory thing. It's not that hard to condition yourself to get used to him, but I would not recommend playing V's missions back to back to back to back to back. I get all of his missions out of the way first on playthroughs now, is the current plan. Just because while he is fun to play in short bursts, I do not recommend playing him very much. Mostly because you got to hold down the dang trigger the entire time you play him to charge Griffin. And that gets really tiring on your fingers.
I bet.
Yeah. So next, we have Dante. So, our homeboy, Uncle Dante, has been... he had a bit of an image issue, and somebody tried to steal his identity about 11 years ago.
Good grief, it was that long too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think it was like 7 for Dino, but yeah, last game he was in was 11 years ago at DNC4.
Yeah, it was.
But he's back. And I am so happy he's back. And he plays better than ever, with more options than ever. The idea behind Dante has always been Toolbox, ever since DMC3, and giving you just a billion toys to play with. And this game takes that and takes it up to 11.
Excellent.
So the first thing you'll notice with Dante is he has a weapon loadout system, and this is because there are literally more weapons in the game than is reasonable to hold in a switchable inventory. Yeah. For instance, you get this was in the trailer, so I don't think I can. This is a spoiler, but at some point you can find a hidden weapon with him that's Lady's rocket launcher from DMC3.
Oh, neat.
And then you get its upgraded version as part of the story, Kalita Ann 2 from DMC4. And then you can use either one of them, or you can use them together in dual-wield rocket launchers.
Good. Great.
And that is that is one set of weapons that you can pick between. And after you beat Son of Sparta mode, you unlock freedom with your customization of Dante's weapons. So you're not forced to take Rebellion or whatever state it's in the story, and Ebony and Ivory. You can unequip those, and you can take Kalita Ann 1, Kalita Ann 2, and both of them as 3 of your 4 allowed guns into the mission if you want.
I suppose if you needed any further proof that DMC was back, dual-wielding rocket launchers like that.
Oh, it gets even. He can screw them together to shoot a laser beam.
There you go.
Yeah, he is even more over the top.
But how?
Don't think about it. Just accept that it is really cool.
Yeah. So yeah, he just sits one down on the ground, picks the other one up, and it's a pretty long animation to screw them together. And he screws them together, and he can either do a short, quick laser beam burst if he does it with the normal fire button, or if he's in Gunslinger stance and he does it with the Gunslinger special button, he'll just channel this like Ghostbusters proton pack giant laser beam at people while he stands in place with this giant screwed together rocket launcher. It's hilarious. I love it. And yeah. So yeah, I've already mentioned the Faust hat, which is his other fun gun that he gets this game. It is a lot of fun to use, although its practical applications are fairly limited, but it can be used to get enemies back towards you if you're doing some stuff with some of the smaller weapons, some of the smaller melee weapons, which I'm a big fan of. It does take some practice to use, but I am busy playing with the other weapons to worry about doing that right now and still getting the hang of Dante, because there's just so much stuff to do with this guy. His other 2 guns are the standard Coyote shotgun and Ebony and Ivory, which play exactly like they have before in the past games. So those are your familiar weapons, and your 2 new your familiar guns, and then your 2 wacky guns are the Faust hat and the variants of Kalita Ann. And then we get his melee weapons. So Cerberus makes a return. It was in the trailers. I won't spoil how it makes a return, because it's pretty late in the game when you get it, and it's really kind of funny how it happens. And Cerberus has been upgraded quite a bit from how it was in DMC3. It was already a fairly good weapon with a lot of good situational uses in DMC3. Now the dumb thing is both ice, fire, and lightning, and has 3 different modes you can switch between with it. So it's effectively 3 weapons in one.
Oh my.
All of which have very different effects, with the fire version being a staff that he can do stuff like spin around like he's a pole dancer or something on, or he can come crashing down from the air with it to make fiery explosions, or he can use it like the ice nunchucks, which are basically just DMC3's moveset with it. Or you can make the thing turn into lightning and wield it like a bow staff. So the thing is insane with the amount of options you have with just one dang weapon. You get the motorcycle that's been fairly infamous since the first trailer is your heavy weapon in this game. He still has gauntlets. Yeah, so this has been a thing. The motorcycle he rides around the trailers splits off, and he dual wields halves of it as weapons, as a weapon. And this thing is really odd to use, but is a lot of fun to use. Like the aforementioned rocket you can surf around on with Nero, you can ride around on the motorbike and pop wheelies on dudes' faces. And this does a crap ton of damage. You're totally unsafe while you do it, and they can hit you, but it does a ton of damage and gets you a ton of style and breaks armor really well. But you're kind of locked in the animation. He can literally sit there and do donuts for, as far as I can tell, ever if you want. Just spinning around on the bike, shooting fire everywhere. And if you can let go, shoot them, then the fragments come back and reform in his hands. He hits like a truck with this thing, but its weapons are very slow. If you've used the chainsaws from Bayonetta, think those, but harder hitting and slower. Less for combo, more for impact.
Okay.
The other thing is he has I think it's a new pair of gauntlets. I don't think Balrog has been his gauntlets. I think it was Infrit and Gilgamesh and Beowulf. So yeah, it's a new pair of gauntlets with, from what I could tell, no story to them. They just kind of come equipped with him because he always has a pair of gauntlets. So they operate like Gilgamesh does, basically. They're not too terribly interesting, but they do have the Infrit mechanic from DMC1, where the more you hit stuff with it, the more they charge up. And the more damage they'll do. So they get firier and fierier the more you punch and kick stuff with it. But otherwise, their moveset appears to be pretty identical to Gilgamesh's, although I didn't use Gilgamesh very much. It was my least used of his melee weapons in DMC4. And I have not played with it because the variants of main sword are so much fun to use in this game. In this game, he can use Spoilers, Rebellion, like normal, or Sparta as his main sword interchangeably. After you beat the game, you can select between one of the three. And after you beat it on hard mode, you can equip all three of them if you want. And they all control radically differently, which will be his main sword. So the Rebellion works like it always has, with things just kind of going like they are. Sparta is the same thing, but a little heavier, and its special abilities do more damage, but it's a bit slower. And then Spoilers makes his sword a lot more like Nero's Red Queen, without the revving mechanic, and that it moves all his Swordmaster moves into its normal moveset, including your air sword attacks, which used to require you to switch the Swordmaster in the air. You can now just do that whenever with it, and it gets projectiles it can shoot with Swordmaster, which you can use to lock down the foe further in the air while you're doing stuff or on the ground, and you can do tricks and stuff with them. Can't really say that much about what that sword is in particular, but it's a lot of fun to use. Although I think my favorite is the Sparta so far, just because it just hits really hard and feels really good when you land a full Dance Macabre with it.
Nice.
And will jump you from D to A if you manage to land the full thing in your style rating. So yeah. He is a ton of fun to play. All four of the core styles are back. The DMC3 ones do not make a return. Yeah, you can stance on the fly and do some really fun stuff. Popping over to an enemy with Trickster, switching to Swordmaster, doing a sword air combo with it, landing on the ground, switching to Gunslinger, and throwing rockets at somebody is just a thing you do, and it feels very natural and is a lot of fun and looks really cool when you do it. It's what we all hoped we'd get a full game made out of instead of half of one with DMC4. And now we have it.
Excellent.
And it's all wonderful. And he is a bit older. He's a bit... they have switched the timeline up. Fairly recently-ish. I think sometime before this game came out. Not too terribly far before it. They took DMC2 and plonked it in the middle of nowhere in the timeline instead of at the end, so they can effectively write it off. As just him angsting after DMC1 a little bit. He had a little bit of an angsty phase.
He was going through a phase.
He just went off to angst for a bit, and we'll just not talk about it anymore.
So yeah, he's not the super duper happy, 18, 20-year-old we see in DMC3. But he's also not the broody emo one that's, just come off the heavy implications of what happened in DMC1. Mm-hmm. He's somewhere between DMC4 and 3 Dante. He's not, or rather, he's a little bit darker than DMC4 Dante, but not anywhere close to the extent of like DMC1 and 2. And that he is taking the situation that the game has put him in seriously, and they do this more as a way to put gravity around how bad things are going right now, and how important it is to Dante personally. Because, it just is. But his casual moments with the other characters and the bosses are just as silly as like back in DMC4.
All right.
So So old Dante is definitely back. He's just a bit older, and he's in a situation that's he has to take seriously. The game opens with him taking a punch and being put on the ground, with Nero having to come back him up. Like the dude gets beat in the prologue.
Must be getting old.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of this game's story is based around what Dante and Nero's relationship is, and what Dante's trying to teach Nero and pass on to him. That said, they have left open the ending so that it's 900% possible everybody can come back for a new game.
Excellent. Don't want to write any of these characters off.
Yeah. None of them, we don't see a body. Let's put it that way. And it's very obviously intended to show you there is no body for some characters. And that is I'm partially misleading you quite hard, but to keep you away from the story and how it goes. But yeah, everybody can still come back for a future game, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope they do. I hope we see more of this. If Capcom realizes this is a good winning formula, I'll be very happy.
Well, all it needs to do is sell better than the previous one, and that is not hard.
That will not be hard at all.
Like, all you need to do is outdo Dino and send the message loud and clear.
If not in terms of finance, then definitely in terms of fan reaction.
No, in terms of finance, the game.
Oh yeah,
they had, in order to meet their sales projections, they had to make the price of Dino May Cry $0.
They did.
They had to put it. They had to put it on PS Plus. It was the only way they could get their sales for the quarter up high enough to not get lynched by their investors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dino was the worst idea they've ever had.
Yeah, nobody likes Dino.
The media can cry that we're mad and we're just babies about not giving the new game a shot as much as they want. Fact of the matter is, we were angry enough to not buy the video game.
Yep, and at the end of the day, money talks.
And it did. When the special edition of DMC4 came out and outsold the Super Duper HD remake with all the features everybody said should have been in Dino May Cry originally, despite being a remake, and the only new content was one new cutscene and 2 new characters to play as in a game that already is overstuffed with characters for the content it had, that was probably the red flag that said we need to make DMC5 right now.
Yep. Capcom seems to be turning a corner at the moment, but I think the big prover on that one's going to be Street Fighter 6, if it ever comes out.
The Capcom Redemption arc of this anime has been pretty good. I hope they keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
Monster Hunter World to Devil May Cry so far has been good vidya.
Yeah,
genuinely good
is
vidya.
Supposedly pretty decent.
Yeah, and I would say the weakest of all their recent releases is Resident Evil 2, and that was still a good video game.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a slam dunk out of the park for me anyway, and there are some people that think it was.
Well, it's a remake,
so yeah. So yeah, I'm very impressed with Devil May Cry 5, and I will be playing it more, and we'll probably do a much shorter roundup of everything I didn't cover next week because I'm going too long as it is. But that is your general first impressions of the game. I have put let's see, what's my ranking right now in the world for trophies in this game? Because it's hard to check the actual leaderboards. In game, let's see. I am 2nd in the US and 8th in the world at the moment.
In the USA
for this game. Yeah.
Excellent.
2nd in the USA. So I might have a clue what I'm talking about when I talk about Devil May Cry.
Maybe.
Might have hate platted Dino May Cry.
Yeah, that's just spite, and I'm not sure exactly who actually lost in that argument.
I know who lost in the argument that I had with it.
You did.
Yes. I've never finished a Devil May Cry game before. I only finished Dino May Cry on hard on my first attempt.
By face rolling it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to play DMC5 at some point.
Yeah, it's not a full price purchase for me, but it's definitely a game that I would.
It's worrying as I get older and more jaded, I guess. Very few things become a full price purchase.
Yeah.
All you need to do is wait a little bit and you get it much cheaper.
Yeah, the response to the guy as soon as he said your copy will be here 3 hours early was I'll be there before he could finish his sentence.
I'm right behind you already.
Yeah, like I immediately spent the rest of that workday rejigging my schedule and cramming as much work into it as I possibly could to free up even more time so I could stay up later and keep playing. After the show, I'm going to go absolutely die after this show for doing this. It took me a week to set up to kill myself to play my pet franchise.
Yeah, I'm not planning on doing that for Extella Link. It's just too hard. Although I have been trying to push ahead in preparations in advance now that I'm pretty much shackled to the PCR machine for the next week or two. But I can't prepare enough that I can take 24 hours to play the game.
Yeah. Much as I'd love to take 24 hours off once Iceborne launches, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I really wanted to call in sick on Friday. I really did, but I had to go in for about 4 or 5 hours. I just couldn't get out of it. We have too many projects going on right now. Yeah. Adulting got in the way.
Do not want to adult anymore.
Hate adulting. It's not fun.
All right. We should look at a couple of little bits of news before we get out of here. It's been a fairly quiet week on a news front because a lot of the main news articles and things are still carrying on about Vic Mignogna or Captain Marvel, and yeah.
As funny, as personally interesting as I find the Vic stuff, it's all the same stuff. Every week, just different flavors of it.
Different people making stupid statements.
The only interesting new thing to say about it is, despite the fact that they're now probably been handed the letters, they're still going.
Yeah.
I think that it is entirely reasonable to believe that they no longer realize that they're lying.
They're just
like they've been telling themselves these stories so long and reinforcing each other's stories for so long that I think that at this point they could quite feasibly completely believe their own bullcrap.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely possible.
Certainly.
Anybody who's studied any psychology whatsoever knows that it's that those sorts of mutual reinforcements create stronger memories than actual memory generating event.
Yeah. All we can say is the court case is going to be extremely interesting.
Yep. So yeah, that's the only new thing that not even really new.
Yeah. As for Captain Marvel, well, yeah. There's a lot of things going on about that.
That's the latest chapter in the providers of entertainment opposing the people who they want to purchase that entertainment.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that we find everywhere. It's just blown up again. This is just Captain Marvel is just Black Panther playing out again. Only this time it's my women's instead of my black people's.
Yes.
Yeah. This one, unfortunately,
make a good movie.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that if this one doesn't reach projections, and given the expense of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, the projections are probably pretty high. If it doesn't reach projections, somebody has to answer to the mouse.
Oh yes,
because Disney is already facing the reality that they let a progressive control Star Wars and destroyed one of their most valuable franchises out from under them.
Yeah, they aren't going to want to see that. They're already looking very closely at Brie Larson.
Oh yeah.
It's because she can't keep her mouth shut.
Exactly.
They could, and somehow she secured a contract for 7 movies, sight unseen.
Yeah, that's probably going to be revised if the rumors are true.
Oh, it'll probably be something along the lines of what's going on with Star Wars right now, where apparently somebody at Disney is literally standing over their shoulder for the last Star Wars movie the entire time. And not letting these people do this again.
I've heard they lost so much money, so much.
Yeah,
and not just in goodwill, but in actual money, because people were so grossed out by Episode 8 that they refused to watch Solo. And I've heard that Solo is actually a passable movie, not necessarily a good one, but a passable one, especially relative to its contemporary. But nobody wanted to see it because they had such a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah, and the mouse wants money. The mouse wants to consume more. The mouse wants to continue to assimilate. if you're being an obstacle in that, the mouse is going to make you start following the mouse's rules.
Yep, or the mouse will destroy you.
And the MCU is a deeply interwoven network of properties, and any one of them can adversely affect the others nevertheless, even though they're independent.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's really something they can't afford to let get out from under their control.
Yeah.
But it already has to a certain extent. Like their Infinity War story arc has been retconned in advance by the people putting together the new Captain Marvel movie, because the original plan was to finish out that story arc using the classic Avengers characters. This new group of directors, producers, and screenwriters has decided that they're going to use Infinity War to get rid of the classic characters and rebuild a new Avengers under Captain Marvel, which is going to replace the old one in the MCU.
Yeah, there was before Captain Marvel movie blew up, we were fairly sure that Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans were done. And that was it. That was all we knew with credible leaks on it. But now they're talking about replacing everybody.
Yeah, I guess
So,
we shall see. Unfortunately, it's a bit too late for them to really revise the plot for Endgame.
Yeah,
So.
supposedly, though, from credible rumors, it's going to be very reminiscent of the comics, which do involve certain characters making a permanent sacrifice of some kind.
Yeah.
One of them, I mean, it doesn't stay that way because it's comic books, but
well, yeah.
in the original Infinity War storyline, some characters do die and are meant to be dead for realsies that are big players that were probably headed out the door anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be a good time for them to move on with their careers, the people that are, don't want to be Iron Man and Captain Marvel all the time. Yeah. These are all rumors. I have not seen the movie. I have no idea what actually happens.
No, it's still got another month and a half or so before it comes out.
Well, it sounds like the critical apparatus and aggregators don't want anybody to know what the movie is like either.
Yeah, people who are actually putting out opinions on it are getting those opinions deleted unless they're glowingly positive.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes had, I think, 54,000 reviews and an audience score of 32%. And they culled fully 50,000 of those reviews, and that pushed it up to 36%.
Yeah. Your movie's not very good.
Well, it's probably only mediocre like most Marvel movies.
From all reports I've been able to gather...
It's possible it might...
Yeah. From what I've been able to gather, the first half of the movie is kind of... Yeah, and then just turns into generic superhero flick at the end.
Yeah. The problem with reading reports on this movie is no matter what it is, it's going to be politicized when you get a report about it.
Sadly, yes.
So it's really hard to make any kind of judgment about the movie itself without knowing that whoever is making that judgment falls on somewhere in the political spectrum, and it's very likely that has colored their view significantly.
Well, you saw that with Black Panther. If you wanted to look for a movie review that told you if the movie was any good, you couldn't find one. Nobody was actually talking about if the movie was good or not.
Yeah, about the closest I've seen is Jeremy Johns, the usual movie reviewer I go to for new movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's about the closest we can get, and even he gave the impression that he was, grossed out and colored by the political stuff going on. Not so much the content itself, and that was offensive, that it has...
Probably that actress who won't shut up, ever.
Yeah. It's just the situation that has arisen from it has made not a very good taste for his mouth.
Yeah. It has soured a lot of people on the movie.
Yeah.
Why don't they get her a PR handler? It seems like the logical move at this point.
I think with all the lawsuits coming around with Vic and Covington and a bunch of others and a bunch of the stuff with Jussie Smollett, and people are seeing how dangerous Twitter is unchecked by your employees and how much trouble it can get you in, we're going to see a lot more PR handlers telling people to shut up on Twitter.
Well, Jussie Smollett's on his way to jail
prison
now, so yeah.
Well, it's not about him as an individual. It's the way companies are going to respond in future with their employees if they are going to get out of hand on public platforms.
Yeah, they're going to have to sign a thing saying that you are not allowed to use social media while you work for us. We've got a person for that.
Yeah,
who will handle your publicity.
We will make your posts for you.
Yeah, you will be allowed a private account that you can only allow family to see
under a pseudonym.
yeah, under a fake name, but you will not make any statements about our movie on a Twitter that people can trace back to you. Period. We're going to start seeing draconian contracts like that, and there ain't a whole lot of things these actors can do about it because they're choosing to work for these people. And if they want to keep their acting credentials, it's their choice. Because the companies that just want money, which is 99% of them,
it's the mouse.
They're actually, yeah, the mouse and etc. are going to be all like, no, you can't destroy any more IPs, you idiots. You already burned through the ones we had.
Mm. Do not anger the mouse.
You can take that to the bank. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Some degree of it. Maybe not as severe, maybe more.
Oh, no, but it's happened in plenty of other forms before. Like, that used to be the norm.
Yeah.
The break from the norm is the fact that there were no pre-existing rules for social media, and it was sort of a leviathan that emerged on its own, and the contracts that people had prepared were not prepared for the advent of social media. Like it's more a case of catching up rather than changing something.
Yes.
Yeah. And all these people that are calling for censorship on Twitter and stuff, I guarantee you, the second their contracts start limiting what they can say on Twitter, they're going to start screaming my free speech.
Oh, yeah.
When they've been actively attacking it until now.
I don't know. I don't think that they even have enough principles to recognize that. I think more likely that they'll just do as they're told.
But all it is really is just as you said, a catch up. Like if you look at any employment contract in the current age, there will be some provision there preventing you from talking to the media. This really isn't a whole lot different.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm really glad we are getting, consequences for actions in general, even if it is private companies doing it, which seems about right. If you choose to work for them and you are working for their best interest, in theory, you shouldn't be allowed to, ruin their property.
I actually think the Vic situation is more interesting.
Yeah,
in general, because animation is not stabilized by a huge pile of money the way Hollywood is.
Yeah, and they're also
they live on the brink of bankruptcy. All of those localization companies always have, and it is a well-known fact that it is a very, very poorly managed company, which has got a reputation for being entirely staffed by people who are trying to point the finger at other people and stab other people, and so forth. I think is going to be kind of funny when the legal poop starts to hit the fan, and everybody's going to need to fund their various defenses.
Oh yeah, a loss here could very well destroy Funimation.
Oh, well, I don't even think it'll take a loss.
Funimation, I think, is going to distance itself as much as possible from this whole debacle as soon as they realise what they've stuck their foot in.
Yeah,
I don't think that they're going to go to the wall for this.
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it'll even be their choice. I think Sony bought them right before this happened. Sony is going to step in and say, you're doing what with our IPs? You're doing what did you cause? Excuse me? This is how you're managing your voice actors? No. You don't get to do this with stuff we can use to make money. That's exactly what's going to happen. Even if people like Ron Toye are at the very tippy top. Like, it doesn't matter when your boss comes to your door and says, stop it.
I don't know how much they are intervening there. If it becomes a public spectacle, then it probably will. It's just we don't know exactly how Funimation proper is going to get tied into all of this. I think that there is an expectation amongst the people that work for Funimation that Funimation has their back. I don't think that they do. They have the backs of the people that their parent company tell them to, and nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even if this fantasy world where Ron Toye is the only CEO of Funimation, and he is totally going to fund all their legal defenses, that's going to bankrupt them. They can't do that. From a funding perspective, it doesn't work.
I think that there are a lot of misapprehensions at work here, and I think one of the main misapprehensions at work here is that a lot of these voice actors think that they're particularly talented when they're not. Like, they don't realize how replaceable they are. They view themselves as big-name Hollywood stars, in a sense. Like, that name can't be replaced. But no, they are all disposable. The vast majority of people who consume their content do not know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
No.
This is why it's not like movie stars. Like everybody can recognize Robert Downey Jr. Nobody recognizes Jamie Marchi's voice.
But yeah, even then, like, I can guarantee you, unless if I wasn't following voice acting and didn't follow English voice acting as much as I did, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that, you know, Troy Baker was replaced by Matthew Mercer in Persona 4 as Ganji, because people can imitate voices really well, and there are people,
especially when it's their job to.
Yeah, and these people are paid to do it. They're good enough to do it. Like, you may be beloved for your character, and you may have given a really good performance, but all somebody has to do is copy that to take your job.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the better a person is at copying other people, the more likely they are to get your job, because it means they've got a better range than you do.
Yeah, like we see this with Bryce Papenbrook. There are one or two imitators, I forget, but you cannot tell the difference because he only has one voice. And people are able to practice it, and that gives them access to literally all of his roles if he can't sit in and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way it works. Just using your physical abilities, your ability to speak when you're acting, is much simpler to replicate than body language or emotional output, stuff like that you would get when a camera's on you.
Yeah. You can probably count the people with wholly unique voices in acting on one hand.
And Vic was one of them. Vic was able to play young child male characters as a man, and it sounded authentic. He is valuable in the voice acting industry.
Yep.
Yeah, he's played characters across the age spectrum, which is very rare.
Yep. Vic is one of them. What's his name? Gilbert Gottfried's another one.
He only does one voice.
He only does one voice, but it's a very significant voice.
Yes. But
which for some reason I think of as the Bernie Sanders voice, even though Bernie Sanders doesn't sound anything like that.
It sounds absolutely nothing like him. What's his name? Richard Stephen Horvitz, I believe. Yeah. That was him.
But the point is, the people they're attacking are significantly more valuable than them. In this case, specifically because these are a bunch of young women. And they, especially these ones that are playing bit roles like Jamie Marchi, their roles are not valuable. Funimation isn't going to care if they have to replace a side character in something with a sound alike, because those are a dime a dozen in voice acting. You can find young girls in voice acting way easier than most, or people that can do a young girl voice, than you can most other roles.
Yeah, like YouTube is absolutely clogged to the gills with young women's voice acting portfolios.
Oh yeah.
Like, you're a girl in a construction job again here. Vic has a unique talent and a unique physical ability to do what he does. It just happens to be his throat instead of his muscles on his arms. That you guys just don't have.
Anyway.
So he is more valuable.
Honestly, I can't actually think of very many female voice actors who are so talented that I don't think that there's somebody else who could do any given role that they do. Most of them are pretty generally sound samey. Like, they're all more or less interchangeable. There are very few very good performances.
Yeah.
The only one that really comes to mind, that really sticks out in my mind as being distinct and has never been imitated by someone else, is the sort of like incredibly nasal, slightly Texan twang of Tiffany Grant. Other than that, they pretty much all sound the same.
Yeah, there is it's just I'm trying. Laura Bailey can do a wide range, even if her tone is the same and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think that's mostly bad direction rather than her. I don't know where she falls on politics or the Vic issue or anything, but
we don't care until they start making a lot of noise about it.
Yeah, but she's been sane about it at least, and hasn't said anything. So I mean, she's one that I know that generally does a fairly good job, and people know her name enough because she's done enough good jobs. And that's about it off the top of my head. Yeah, there are other, but there are many more men in the industry that have made a name for themselves by being good because they get reused all the dang time because they're so rare. Finding a good male voice actor is really tough, especially one that can do specific types of characters. Like Crispin Freeman has all the deep, gruff-sounding old men that are tough stoic types on lockdown because he's so dang good at it and everybody wants him.
It's kind of his thing now.
And they are more likely to get to keep characters. I mean, who could take Dante's role? Let's say that carjacking went a different way. Like, what are they going to do for Dante from then on?
Well, Dante's a special case because DMC is made with the English voice acting in mind first. Ruben is the mocap for Dante, and he has been integrated into the Japanese seiyuu culture because of the nature of Devil May Cry's production and how it was made with the English dialogue in mind first. So he is more entrenched and should be treated as more treated as a seiyuu that does mocap than a proper American voice actor due to the nature of his work and the fact that he basically only does Dante. Ruben only does Dante.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, there are quite a number of male voice actors like that who own roles. Like, who could replace John St. John? Like, as Duke Nukem. He's the only Duke Nukem that there is. And they go crawling back to him every single time they make a Duke Nukem game because nobody else sounds like Duke Nukem.
Yeah. But, like, any of the stereotypical young girl types, there are very few that have owned the role and stood out because they're able to pick from such a diverse pool. They're just all over and easy to find because it's just a career a lot of girls want to go into. So yeah.
The other thing I noticed about all of those masses of application style portfolios, demo reels, if you wish, of female voice actors trying to get noticed on YouTube is that they all are trying to sound exactly the same for some reason.
But you get people like the Team 4-Star guys who get voice acting offers in a heartbeat as soon as they display any public interest in it because they've shown that they can do a decent job at it. Although I've heard some of their responses towards the Vic thing are fairly reprehensible.
Oh yeah, well they fired Vic.
Did Team 4-Star disassociate with him? I haven't
seen. Hold on. I'm thinking something else.
You're thinking of Chris Mott.
Yeah, I was thinking of Rooster.
Yeah.
But
cock dentures.
They are entangled with a lot of the same apparatuses.
Yeah, and especially some of the names that keep getting called out, like Sean Schimmel and Chris Sabat. So they're in that web. But yeah, the point is they all had a huge range. It could do a whole lot of voices. They eventually refined into something that was really good and funny. And they became valuable. So, but yeah, they're not trying to imitate anyone there. They're trying to find a voice and make it their own. Because they know if they can land, well, they probably don't think about this consciously, but if they land a role and are able to do voices like that are that unique, that gives that character identity that's tied to them and makes them very valuable in the process. Which is why they got jumped on. Not because they had a bridge series that was really popular. It's because that voice talent was valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, Jamie Marchi, Monica. Y'all are both effectively replaceable. You don't have a role that you own. I haven't looked at Monica's as much. I know she's in some stuff I like. But
she's been in a lot of things for a very long time. Like, the reason why she's entrenched in the industry is because she always has been.
Yeah, she's an old hat.
I don't really feel like most of her roles are terribly remarkable, but she has a lot of them.
Yeah.
And has done so for a very long time.
Yeah, she's done good grief.
A big number.
It's well over 100.
Yeah, but yeah, the two main accusers are just people taking the shotgun approach to roles, while Vic is being more selective and owning the roles he does personally. He will go to conventions and talk at length about how much he loves Tamaki and Ed. He entrenches himself in those rules and makes himself identifiable with them. That's why people knew who Vic was even before this started.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't know Monica or Jamie Marchi unless you might know Jamie from the Dragon Maid thing a few years ago, and you might know Monica just from
yeah, but not favorably.
And you might know Monica from just the sheer amount of crap she's in.
She's in just about everything, honestly.
But yeah, these are bit side girl, not best girl voice actors. Like, you ain't Laura Bailey. You ain't Crispin Freeman. Sorry, honey. We can tell you're doing this because you're just bitter that somebody's doing your job better. Get bent. As a replaced voice actor once said playing another character in Persona 4.
Well, I've heard some slightly more out there theories which do sound kind of plausible though. Like with Monica, for instance, is that she's notoriously very, very, very chummy with Vic up until recently, and the salacious theory that's floating about is that her husband basically got mad at how close they were, and she's trying to come up with a reason to bail herself out why they were so close.
Oh, her fiance, you mean? I thought she wasn't married yet.
I can't remember. I've heard various people refer to him as husband and others as fiance. So I don't. And in this context, it doesn't actually make a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard that it's actually her just trying to sort out her personal issues by setting up a fall guy.
Yeah. She picked
There's a popular theory, and it's not unreasonable. It's the sort of like high school bullcrap that you would expect from that particular industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've tangented horribly, so let's get back on track.
That was supposed to be a quick topic. This is why I'm never worried about the news we have.
That wasn't going to be a topic at all.
Yeah, it wasn't on the list.
This is why I'm never worried about the news we have.
This is very short, but whatever.
So you dug up the stuff this week, Fern. I was busy banging.
You were banging. All right. We have a new Nintendo thingy. Well, an old Nintendo thingy of sorts. It's Nintendo Labo again.
Yeah, I saw this and I just thought it was the same thing all over again with a re-release.
Yeah, essentially.
What was the effect of the release of the last one? Like, did they actually have good uptake? Because I can never tell with Nintendo products. I don't know anybody.
They don't release any numbers, so you have no idea. But it seems to
we don't know enough kids.
Reasonably well received, I guess. So
it's still very expensive cardboard. Ultimately,
it is. So this time they have actually merged Nintendo Labo with, of all things, Google Cardboard.
Yeah.
So it's a VR helmet made of cardboard.
The problem though is that the Switch, the chip in the Switch for portable mode is gutless for starters, and secondly, the screen is worse than the average smartphone. No, it's worse than the average smartphone on pure specification. As for fit for purpose, it serves because it's when you want to make a screen big, the thing that you have to consider most of all in manufacturing is failure, because actually making it within the dead bright pixel threshold is still relatively difficult compared to previous equivalent technology. So when you want to make a big thing, making a less complicated, lower spec one will result in a better product in the end, which is what Nintendo does. That screen, in terms of what its actual output is on a specifications basis, is worse than a good smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that means that it's going to be much worse than a good smartphone for VR, especially considering it's got a maximum refresh rate of 6.
Yeah, for general use, that's not an issue, but for VR, that's going to make things interesting. And by interesting, I mean eye-bleedy.
On one hand, what you have here is you've got a VR product that is a piece of cardboard. So when it comes to going head-to-head with, say, PSVR, it's got them beat on a lot of angles there. The problem is that the technology itself as implemented is as immature as I think the PSVR technology is. This is going to be way, way less useful. And who is going to develop for it? Is there going to be anything other than a couple of first-party minigames? Like, if that's the route that you want to go, then they need to have, like, their killer Wii Fit style app, the thing that justifies people buying a wacky peripheral, and that needs to take off like wildfire. Nintendo's done it before. They can do it. Even
They
with
can
the
do it.
inferiority of the machinery that they're working with, they can do it.
Mm.
But, you know, a lot of the time, and this is because Nintendo is so wildly successful when they're successful, a lot of the time it goes unnoticed that a lot of the crap they come out with is very...
Oh yeah,
like,
they do.
How many of the weird, wacky plastic peripherals that they released for the Wiimote actually saw use compared to engagement with the Wii product itself?
Yeah.
Very few.
From what
Very few.
From what I can tell from this, it's just put up as just an extension of Labo, so a cheap, crappy thing. Essentially, the VR headset itself is a piece of plastic and a couple of lenses.
But I mean, the thing is that might be enough simply because its job is not to be a fully fledged VR peripheral. Its job is to thrill a few children for a couple of hours.
Yeah, and for that, I think it would do a decent job. So, yeah, for the full price version, $80, you get 6 different, for want of a better word, peripherals. Let's see.
Cardboards.
Cardboards.
Let's be honest. You're getting a box. So that's not a product. That's a box.
We have established before that
the
Nintendo
one
thinks they're
situation
cats.
in which advertising the box is relevant.
Yeah. We have established in the past Nintendo thinks their customers are cats. So, yeah.
But I think that there's one angle, though, that nobody has actually bothered to consider this from.
Mm.
And that's government regulation.
Okay.
Labo is fundamentally a product for children.
Yes.
And telling people otherwise is not going to hold a lot of water. The thing is that VR devices are considered to be a health risk to the vision of young children whose eyesight is developing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the potential that they're going to run afoul of government regulations that happen to be alert enough if there are any reports that this actually affects people negatively. And given, you know, the litigious nature of a lot of countries, particularly European countries, which are actually far more litigious than the United States, and I don't know if that would offend the US or make them satisfied. The Europeans are worse. But either way, they could run into trouble with this unless they, you know, slather it with legal warnings and then, you know, pointedly avoid directly advertising it to children, which is sort of shooting yourself in the foot given the nature of the product.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is actually, it could turn into a thorny issue.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Honestly,
I haven't really thought about it.
Just looking at it, it's hard to say which way it's going to go on that score.
Yeah, it's a piece of cardboard at the end of the day, and this is all marketing buzz that'll make it what it is, and what litigation will be leveled at it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That said, there is a cheaper version. So you got the big version at $80. There's a
How do you get cheaper than cardboard?
by making it less cardboard. And
Slightly
that's
different
what the other
quantities and colors of cardboard.
Exactly. So there is the VR starter set, as they call it, which is $40, and it includes the blaster and whatever the actual starter one is, which I think is just goggles. I could be persuaded to try that.
The goggles do nothing.
The goggles do nothing. You know, purely, I could do it purely for the sake of science. Sorry, science!
Yeah, no, I'm not even going to front a cost that big. A for cardboard and B for VR when I know in my heart of hearts I'm going to get sick.
Yeah, there is every possibility of projectile vomiting.
I didn't get sick, and I get motion sick in cars very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sort of surprised by that, but you still get fatigued.
Yes, you
like
do.
mentally fatigued from parallel processing your senses that are anchored in the real world with the ones that are being tricked.
Hey, it's bad enough doing it when driving. It's a similar effect.
I have to drive a lot, and that is the most tiring thing, even though you're not physically moving. I would rather not come home and do more of that.
Exactly. That's essentially the same mental fatigue you're going to be experiencing with VR between that. Especially me, I got maybe 7 or 8 parallel processes running at the same time. It's mental. Anywho, so yeah, it's...
Always smelling for the telltale smell of vomit in the back seat.
I wish I could unsmell other people. Humans are gross.
Take showers, folks. Don't
Please
be
take
that
a
one
shower.
guy.
Please take a shower.
If it was only one guy, Fern would be a lot happier.
Even then, you don't want to be that one guy that said, hey, let's go to a con, and then your friends figured out later that you don't shower. Please don't be that guy.
Nobody wants.
Are there people that don't shower?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. They con and they con and they con and they go back to the hotel room and crash, and then they get up in the morning and go straight back to conning.
Well, if I have not had a shower at some point during the day, I can't sleep.
Yeah. It's all gross.
I take either a shower in the morning before work or a shower in the evening before bed every day.
Yes.
There's a set time, at least once a day.
A can of spray deodorant is not a shower.
No. That is for emergencies and worst case scenarios where you've had to do stuff all day and you have a legitimate reason for doing it.
Real talk, guys, it doesn't actually work.
No, it doesn't.
Like, you don't actually smell bitter, you smell conspicuous.
It is a admission that you know something's wrong and you're lampshading it. That is what a can of spray deodorant does for you.
Yeah. Anyway, the other piece of news we've got is a very small one. Another one on the list of E3 abandonees is EA. There's not going to be an E3 this year at this rate.
Yeah.
There's going to be a collection of disassociated presses, and that's it.
Nothing of value was lost.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of 100% fine with this. Nothing interesting has been announced at E3 in the last long time, other than DMC5. And that's because it's a pet series. Like, all this other stuff would have got the exact same level of hype, and it'd have been just as fine announced at a private company-only presser.
I think this phenomenon is actually a relative of the one we were talking about earlier with movie stars who can't control their social media. I think that because of phenomena like social media, the companies just can't afford to have so much control taken out of their hands. Like when they want to do their releases, like, because we're rolling up on the end of a console generation. The next Xbox and PS5 or whatever are going to get announced soon. Like, they want to play it close to the chest beforehand, and they want it absolutely under control when they deploy it.
I think it's a combination of
this is part of the
thing.
same phenomenon.
Oh, yep. Yeah. I think it's a combination of the social media thing, as you mentioned, as well as the decline of game journalists. It's just...
Well, it's the same thing, right? It's a change in where you get your information from. Because games journalists were a bought and paid for lens that they could project their product through to the market. Now the market sidesteps them entirely.
Yeah, they can talk directly to their customers. They do not need the journalist industry. And at worst, they can, control a message and stick it out on social media.
Well, but that's the thing, right? It's not just that they don't need it. It's now that they don't need it, having the journalists there who are used to having a certain position in the industry, who are used to certain perks, used to getting a certain amount of attention, they are now a liability.
Yes.
Because journalists have destroyed products in the past, and they spend an awful lot of time painting things in accordance with their own wishes, and everybody can see it now. And that includes the money people.
Yep. Somebody at the top at these companies has been clued in to how these people are behaving and how that reflects on their product.
Well, everybody was watching when Gawker went down.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're still watching because Gawker's still burning.
Well, there's a few embers left, but I haven't heard, it hasn't been uproarious. I haven't heard people talking much on the internet.
It's collapsed 3 times since the Gamergate days.
Yeah. The first 2 times, it was like, okay, its subsidiaries blew up. Okay. Oh, it itself is going down. How much left is there to collapse?
Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, this E3. Well, lack of E3.
Yeah, I imagine around the same time of year, just because companies are used to scheduling stuff in such a way that announcements come in the summer, we will still see a release season or a presser season.
Oh yeah, it's the ideal time to announce things for the holiday season is mid-year.
As far as I'm concerned, this will just make it less tiring to cover.
Yeah,
potentially.
Because I hate having to. I hate having to sit through all those presses in 2 days. Like, it's just too tiring.
Yeah,
I've got better things to do after work.
If everyone does a quick half-hour presser instead of the 2.5 hour faff abouts that we've been putting up with for E3, that would be a lot easier.
Yeah, like, hopefully.
Because I mean, we know the content of the Bethesda presser in advance. It's going to be a new version of Skyrim, so we can just write that one off.
Yeah.
Ubi's going to have like a really weird dance number, so you can skip at least the first half hour.
Ubi unveils the same games every year anyway.
Microsoft's going to have a car.
Or something else equally pointless.
There'll be a sports person in at least one of the presses.
There'll be a rapper there.
Awkward one.
Like, the point is, we know how this song and dance goes.
Yeah.
And it just ain't exciting.
And in the case of Ubi, it's usually a literal song.
Let's just... Yeah. Everyone copy Nintendo. Just go, game, 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 pun, game, game, game. Done.
Yeah.
There's your presser.
Sony... Like, Nintendo has had a bunch of good ones around that season, and the one press conference I hold really high is the Sony recovery presser, where after the Xbone did TV spurts, they came out and killed it.
Yoshida.
And yeah, even though they're on shaky ground right now, that press conference is how every press conference should be done.
That, or go puppet Reggie again.
Well, you're not always going to get set up as perfect an opportunity as they did, unfortunately.
It was there, and it was on a golden platter, right for the grabbing.
I just want to, what's his name, with the camera in the back room, get the camera. We need to do this. This is how you share games. With, okay, camera guy, you get it? Good, edit it quickly. Done. We got 2 hours.
Didn't need even much editing. Just put the opener and closer on it, done.
And then that whole presser was just video game, video game, video game, video game.
Yeah,
it was a bog standard presser for back for what we would consider it being as old as we are. But recently, you don't see nobody do game anymore, other than Nintendo.
Sony did for a couple of years running, and then they seem to have forgotten.
They did that whole faff about with the tents just for announcing one game last year. Like, really?
I think that how poorly their whole presser was received last time has probably affected the fact that they're not bothering anymore. And they've also given up on Sony Experience for the year, haven't they?
I believe so, yeah. They're kind of just merging them into one thing and putting it out that way. At least, so saith the rumours.
Yeah. They're definitely going to have a bunch of stuff to announce later this year, important stuff concerning the next console generation, most likely.
That's probably when we'll get our first really good look at Iceborne, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think that the era of these big press conferences is going to draw to a close the way the end of the era of big press did, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they were so intrinsically linked together that it's kind of hard to for them to survive without the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only purpose that it really serves is to give failing comedians and YouTube stars a bigger stage, and I don't think we need that. Like, Jeff Keighley keeps doing that as it is, and it already gets on my nerves when he does it.
Just please stop, Keighley. Just stop.
We're already making more than enough with an allowance for the Game Awards, IMO, for these big press event things. And that's just a cringe fest every year. Like, losing another one when we're already drowning in cringe fest doesn't seem like a significant loss.
Yeah. Anywho, we should start wrapping up because we're at time.
We are.
Not going to talk about the Epic thing again.
It's beating a dead horse, but we can slip it in there real quick.
I want to mention it because I think it's anti-consumer.
Oh, it's very much anti-consumer.
This is basically the latest news on The Division 2. It's the latest casualty in being bought out by Epic Store, their rights basically it's only going to be sold through Ubi and through the Epic Store. Those are the only two digital vendors. And when I mean that they're the only two digital vendors, I mean that they're the only two digital vendors, because this joint deal is cracking down on third parties. So part of the reason why Valve's large market share wasn't a damaging dictatorial monopoly is because they were perfectly content for a third-party market of game keys to exist sort of underneath their aegis, and they were happy to allow those keys to be claimed on their platform, whether it's from like Humble or whatever. Or did Good Old Games give keys for Steam? I don't remember.
They do, yes. So Humble, Green Man Games, Amazon to a degree.
Yeah, and all of the other shadier ones as well. Like, basically, it meant
G2A.
that even though you've got this big juggernaut storefront, you don't have to pay the stated price. You can shop around if you want. You have that option. Lots and lots of vendors that sell keys that you can claim on their platform and use through their platform. So while they did have the lion's share of the market share, they did not be evil with it. I mean, they've done dumb things and anti-consumer things in the past, and a lot of their features are a bit rough. Some of them work, some of them don't, but they haven't gone out of their way to control everything about the way people purchase product. Epic clearly intends to do the opposite. Their review system leaves review control entirely in the hands of the people producing the game, publishing the game. They are attempting to strangle the third-party key market. They don't allow third-party keys whatsoever. Basically, if they have a deal with somebody to distribute a game, they know exactly which vendors are going to have that game. They can fix the price entirely within their own control. So this entire thing is incredibly anti-consumer. They've got a huge amount of money that's suddenly been dumped in their laps by Fortnite, and it seems like they are planning to use it to be as evil as possible.
Yeah.
So,
like, come on, exclusive games on a PC. Just why? There are games on the Epic Game Store that I was actually really looking forward to, like Metro and Satisfactory and others. But they're exclusives now, so I will not be buying them.
Yeah, like I don't actually care as much about it's a nuisance to have another launcher. It is a nuisance to have another launcher. It certainly is. But the reality is that this is how competition in the digital space works. You can't go to a shopping mall and walk past 3 shops that sell the same thing. You have to have 3 shops on your computer that sell the same thing if you want to shop around.
Yeah.
I get that. However, the actions being taken by Epic are designed to invalidate the existence of those other shops. They're producing a product that only they can produce, and they will not allow anybody else to sell it ever. That's just the way that it's going, and I don't need that in my life. The thing is that there are so many games. I just if you won't let me, if you aren't willing to play the game of competing on price with your competitors, fair game, then I will play the game of picking and choosing which games I'm going to invest my time in, and they won't be those ones.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. There's plenty of things for me to play. I don't have to pick the anti-consumer juggernaut, control the price of everything, and not expose itself to fair competition.
No. It's why I keep a very active GOG account. It's, aside from them, occasionally just giving away free games, I could use GOG Galaxy, or I could just plug that same CD key into Steam and have everything together. Same with Humble.
And that was the great discovery of Valve when they brought Steam out, is that, so it really was quality of service all the time. It was the reason people pirated games was because it was easier than buying them, not necessarily because it was cheaper than buying. So if we just make it super easy to buy them, then we'll take a chunk out of piracy and make a chunk of change in the process.
Yep.
That was their grand discovery. If you're going to then turn around and make it harder to get the games that you want on the platform that you want, you're just undoing all of the progress that was made. So
it's actually going to be... I'd be very interested to see the piracy numbers on these exclusive games, by the way. Because I can guarantee that they are higher than the average.
Yeah, proportionally they're going to be higher. It's inescapable. They're setting themselves up for it. They're creating the situation which originally led to piracy.
Yep. Just we'll see how long it lasts. Maybe they'll open up their doors. Maybe they'll just fall flat on their face.
Well, from what I hear, as a storefront, it's also a pile of garbage.
Oh, yeah.
It's virtually, despite how confusing Steam is, like this one is virtually unnavigable, and half the features don't work.
Yeah,
that's what I haven't used it myself, but that's what people have been saying. That it's a mess to use, not competitive on service.
There's no excuse for that anymore. Like when Steam first started up, it was new. Like the idea was new as a virtual Steam storefront. There's been, good grief, nearly 20 years of progress since then. And yet other companies still can't get it right. Anywho, anything else on that front?
I think it's...
I can't think of anything. I haven't been following the Epic stuff at all. It's just been a thing that's been in the periphery that I've been annoyed about because there's like one game on it I've been looking at.
Yeah.
And it's not a must-play. It's just one I think I would like.
Yeah. So it's been that way for me as well, but every now and again they'll pop up and say something loud and stupid and have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Stop doing loud, stupid things, Epic. Anywho.
So yeah, I don't have anything else to say on that or anything else at the moment. Do y'all have anything?
Nope.
Nope.
Alrighty, we'll get out of here then. Closing comments, go.
Yeah, need free time.
Diablos is not my friend.
Diablos is nobody's friend.
Tell Vidya Games not to release on weeks where I've got too much work to do, please. Because I would like to enjoy them without a timer at my back.
Yes.
A timer so strict I have to get in the top 10 people in the world that have played this video game to be able to play it. Otherwise I wouldn't have had time.
Good grief. Alright. Let's get out of here then.
Alrighty. Email topic of the week is voice actors. Are they cool or not? There you go. Tell us your favorite ones. And what you think about the big thing. Because I'm too lazy to think of a good one, and I'm too tired to.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I said I'd stop doing those until y'all actually wrote us emails.
You also said that. But, whatever.
Yeah, but did anybody check the email box today?
I did.
No.
Nothing there.
Okay. I guess we'll see y'all next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.